What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to a brand new edition of the Hockey Happy Hour, live on A2DRadio.com. I am Matt Sudi, along with, damn it, the broken one, Rob Povia, over here. Below, none other than the Darkwing himself, Mr. Brian Daly.
What up?
And today we are brought to you by, as always, Specialized Physical Therapy, run by Mr. Dr. Paul Vidal. And he is located in Burlington, Cherry Hill, and Princeton, New Jersey. And right now, if you want to try and make an appointment or what have you, you can visit him on the web at www.specializedphysicaltherapy.com. If you got any aches and pains, go see Paul Vidal, Dr. Paul Vidal. You won't have those aches and pains anymore. So make sure you take care of that. No one wants to go through life with aches and pains. No one.
Nope.
That's why they invented beer.
True. But they also invented doctors to take care of that, too.
Probably more appropriately.
Salud, my friend. Salud.
So,
cheers to your health.
You too.
All right, so gentlemen, today we are going to simulate the Stanley Cup Playoffs. And the reason why I say simulation instead of prediction is the assumption that the playoffs are going to happen and we're predicting them ahead of time. No, since we don't really know if the playoffs are going to happen, I still have that hope that they will, but we don't know. Still not guaranteed them. However, there is a little thing called simulation, which basically means we'll simulate the playoffs for you. Not nearly as fun as watching them, but we'll do the best we can, won't we, guys?
Yeah, well, fortunately, CSN is televising NHL 20 games right now, so it's something. It's better than nothing.
That is true. It is definitely better than nothing. And our brackets, we decided to give you guys a little bit extra because since there's been a lot of talk about extending the playoffs, we have decided to extend the playoffs here as well. And we're basing all of the seeding off of winning percentage, not off of division standings, which changes the brackets up just a wee bit. And we even have a graphic for you guys to keep track of everything going on. Rob, feel free to show them the graphic.
Yeah, I'm on it, man. Yeah. We put a lot of time and effort into this piece this week, and I think you're going to appreciate it. And I'm just excited about this format. I think it really encapsulates everything that really is missing with the end of the regular season. Basing it on win percentages evens out the teams' games played. Like some teams have played as low as 68, only a few, most of them 69 and 70, but a few teams also 71. So it balances that out, and it also takes care of those bubble teams that with 12 to 14 games left in the season could have made a run at one of those two wild card slots. Now, my major problem with it, I told you, Maddie, was the one discrepancy I had was right here with Buffalo making it 12 with a 435 win percentage. One of the few lower win percentages in the Eastern Conference when compared to the Western Conference. We'll delve into that further later. But otherwise, I'm tickled pink with this setup, and it's going to be a lot of fun running the numbers. Oh, little cheating. That's my filled-in bracket.
Well,
unfortunately for Buffalo, they'd have to be there. Otherwise, you're going to have to take a team out. You got to keep it even. And if that's the case, you got to do the same thing on the West as well. So instead of maybe doing 24, you do 20, 22 team playoff, and then you eliminate those teams with the losing records.
Exactly.
It's always an option. It's always an option.
Well, there's so many ideas being floated out there. I mean, anywhere from having the standard, 16 team, 8 in the East, 8 in the West, having a Sweet 16 of just the 16 best records overall, regardless of conference, and even something as extreme based on current life events, depending on how long the NHL and teams will be able to either have these playoffs or what cities would be permissible to even host these games, even in an empty arena. There's been an array of opinions as low down as having it as a 3-round Stanley Cup tournament where each series was best of 3. That's something a lot of players aren't really too high on. I mean, not so much the best of, because we adapt that we have the first round being a best of 5, and we'll explain that as we go through the bracket. But because that's a big throwback to hockey and how the Stanley Cup was determined back in the 20s and 30s, and as late as 79, 80 when they had the preliminary rounds for hockey. So, not so much that, but they want to make sure that at least it's a 4-round tournament to respect the integrity of the league. Such players as Ryan O'Reilly has came out really adamant about that. I'll look up a couple quotes he had later on as we go through the show. And lastly, my last point that I'll make is PK Subban on the Devils even lobbied for an all 31 team, every team involved. And of course, he would suggest that being on the shitty Devils.
Being on a team that is almost dead last in the division.
Hey, listen, I wouldn't be opposed to that idea. Like, I think PK brings up a good idea. Have a 31 team all out brawl for the Stanley Cup instead of, any team can win it. Why not?
So that would mean the President's Trophy team gets a bye into the second round, and then everybody else has to battle. So one team gets to rest and watch the entire first round happen and await to see who they'll draw.
I kind of like
sometimes
that.
Rest doesn't mean a thing.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
That's true. And in our scenario where we have the 4-team buys, right, they're at a severe disadvantage because not only have they've had all this time off, but then all those other teams playing in that best of 5 series will have that series to, get the juice back in the legs. With that scenario, it's only the one team, the President's Trophy, and they're always cursed anyway. So
yeah, they usually never win.
And you know what? I think we'll put a pin, little thumbtack into that little idea of a 31 seeded Stanley Cup playoffs, because who knows, if this keeps going on, we might as well just do something around that, because why the fuck not? It'll be way too much fun. I won't ask anyone to make a graphic of that. That's way too much. That's way too much. No, absolutely
this one was
not.
hard enough.
Yeah, no, and yes, give it all up to Rob on this one. He's the one who made that beautiful graphic that you guys will be seeing for the rest of the evening. But anyway, and Joseph,
except the flag. The flag is nice today.
True. And where's Gritty?
Yeah, you have to find him.
I see him. I found him.
Can you guys find him? That'll be the real question. Joseph Orakovsky, of course, saying, imagine if the Red Wings won the Cup this year. I would cry laughing. It would be one of the most amazing Stanley Cup runs in the history of Stanley Cup runs for a team that really should not win, but they amazingly pull off the unthinkable.
But I mean, I like the idea. I think it's a cool idea to have all 31 teams involved, just because of the circumstances. And it's like I've been saying the last couple of weeks. There's a lot of teams out there that currently are going to get robbed because of making a wild card run that aren't going to be able to finish that run. So, that would probably leave 5 or 6 teams out of the playoff race, and might as well just include them and then just see what happens.
And Brian, are you also saying this because the Ducks are almost in last place?
No, I just think it'd be a kind of a cool idea to see where it goes, to see which teams catch fire.
Okay.
I think it'd be interesting. I think it'd be interesting to see a team at the bottom of the barrel win the Stanley Cup.
I'll be honest with you, dude. If you had said yes, I would not have called you a homer. I would have said, who cares, man? What other years do you get to see all 31 teams battle it out for the Cup?
Well, and that's kind of like the whole premise that I think is cool, is that you're not going to probably ever see this again.
No, not at all. But with that being said, we are going to do that simulation of the playoffs. Oh, and before we get in, I know it's a bit of a somber note, but unfortunately, a hockey player has passed away, unfortunately, due to brain bleeding on the Edmonton Oilers. Tragically, young player too, and it's a real tragedy that it happened. And unfortunately, that's no one realized it. No one could have suspected it, really. It's not like it's something that you can see happening. It's just you never know. And so it's hearts and prayers and condolences out to the family.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Brain hemorrhages are of any sort are very tough to detect. I've lost a couple family members, or at least one particular family member, my grandmother's mother, to that. Just comes right out of the blue. So, thoughts and prayers with the family and the whole NHL as a whole.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, with that, we will move on and we will go into the Stanley Cup playoff simulation. And if you guys want to give your opinions out there, you are always more than welcome to. Feel free to throw in any comments. Tom Arnone chiming in. Yo, boys. Hey, Tom.
What up, Tommy?
And Frank saying, hey, yo, sorry to bother you. Hashtag banana heads at work. I agree to extent. There does need to be a play-in with some of the teams in striking distance of the playoffs. Example, the Rangers.
They're probably the best example.
Yeah. And Joseph Workowski saying, I think they should retract back to 68 games, have a 4-game regular season to 72 games, end the season, and have a regular playoff format of 16 teams.
I mean, that's not a bad idea. At least you get all these teams playing, getting their legs ready and getting back into game shape for the 4 games and then jumping into the playoffs. But unfortunately, like I was saying before, with the other teams that aren't going to be involved, what's the point of even bringing them back for the 4 games? You know what I mean?
It's true. And Joseph Workowski saying, saw an interesting question on the Flyers Facebook fan page. Jason Smith, Darian Hatcher, Chris Pronger, Peter Forsberg, Kevin Dean, and Rick Tocchet, Ed Van Imp, or other, who do you think was the worst captain in Flyers history?
Ooh.
I saw this earlier.
In my opinion, I will go with Jason Smith.
Yeah, agreed.
He was, and to be fair, that's not his fault.
No,
he was being told to place hold before we had a captain ready to fill that role, which became Mike Richards. Right. So really, I don't blame him, and I think he did the best he could under the given circumstances. It's a tough job, and when you're given it, it's just like, I shouldn't be, but I'll try. And he gave it his best. I can't fault him for it. He gave it his best shot.
He was also only a Flyer for what, a cup of coffee?
About that too.
He signed from Edmonton for what, a 1, maybe 2-year deal.
Something like that.
As soon as the contract was done. So
yeah.
He was probably. It was what it was. So I could give him my vote. Wasn't a big fan of Richie as a captain, but yeah, you can make an argument for any of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, Darian Hatcher, I think he's more of a stay-at-home D-man more than offensive. And I think when you have a captain as a defenseman, sometimes you need to have a captain who has an offensive touch like a Chris Pronger. Yes, Pronger was very good on the defensive side of the puck in terms of checking and being an intimidating factor, but he also had an offensive touch to him as well. He could hit you with that slap shot at any time and score a nice little goal right on top shelf.
Yeah,
no
absolutely.
Doubt. Rob, what were you going to say?
I said no doubt, brother. That's what I said.
Oh, no. I meant in terms of, who do you think would fall into the captaincy? Were you agreeing with Smith?
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
okay.
I think so. I'd like to see the options he had up there again, just to be sure. I mean, but that was the first one that came to my mind.
Yeah. Those are the options right there. And then Joe was saying Pronger.
You could even throw Forsberg into that mix because he was just never healthy.
Right.
Sure,
I was looking at him.
Healthy.
Darian Hatcher too, but he's responsible for the chip in Crosby's tooth, so he automatically gets a rate from that equation.
And Joseph Workowski saying, I'm going Pronger. He was only captain 1 year and only played 40 games. Or Ed Van Imp, guy was captain for 3 years and never had more than 16 points. Yeah, but to be fair, that whole team was not good. That was the early expansion team that was decent enough to make the playoffs only because the West was such a bad division when expansion first started off. I mean, hell, the Flyers won the first year of the West Division, and the only reason why they won it is because they were 1 game under 500.
Right.
That is piss poor divisioning right there. But anyway, David Roska is saying Anaheim Ducks should get in the postseason.
For what?
Have that 31-team bracket.
A chip in a chair. That 31-team
bracket isn't going to happen anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
In the spirit of poker, a chip in a chair.
But if we're going to look at reality, there's no reason that the Ducks should ever get in the postseason, especially after the year they had, the last couple of years that they've had. Being the worst offensive team.
They're rebuilding. That's just what it is.
Well, under our proposal, and I mean, if this gets adapted, we should get credit for this. I mean, all 3 of us developed this plan here, right? Some teams were under 500 that made, not very many, like I pointed out with Buffalo, and we'll see the others as we delve through the brackets. But, you know what I mean? That's sort of a throwback to these times too. So that's why people get a little too oversensitive, like Drew Doughty, it's not a real Stanley Cup. Go fuck your mother, right? Because so many times in the history of NHL has things been different and unique. And what we propose is the mammoth of all tournaments. But even if it was on the opposite end, when teams are competing for the cup, it's all good.
Well, wait,
Yeah,
wait.
absolutely.
So Drew Doughty says it's not a real cup. So then that means that the second cup Chicago one isn't real because that was a locked out shortened year. That means that the cup that was won by who was it? Was it the Rangers? Because I think that was another strike year that finished with a shorter season.
I
That
don't think. Are you talking
the
94
90.
in Vancouver?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the year that they had the strike in the 90s that
Isn't that
shortened a
93?
season. 93?
I think
It
it
may
was
have been.
93.
Either way, he's saying that doesn't count either. That those weren't real cups, and that's bullshit. They are real cups
Yeah,
because
whatever.
they still had to go through the playoffs. They still had to bust their ass. They still had to win the damn thing, and
You still got to
I
get
don't
in.
give it. Yeah, and you still had to get in. So it's just like that's bullshit. And I'm like, even if you had the pandemic interrupting the season, people still had to work to get into those positions before the season went on pause anyway. And there were some hard fought fights to get into those positions. So don't bullshit me and tell me it ain't a real cup. That's a fucking lie. And I don't know why you're butthurt. You won fucking two, Dowdy. Shut the fuck up.
Right.
Anyway.
I mean, I
Oh,
read through all the history of the format of the tournament ever since the inception of the league, and we'll be able to reference it if it comes up later in the show. But you go back and some of the ridiculousness of the playoff format, and that's a permanent structure that they had. This is just on account of the coronavirus this year. Like this is gonna be a one-time thing. It's not like the league's adapting it for years to come. And this is what they regularly did, where the NHL would have its champion, and then they'd play the PCA NH or the PCHL, and then even the WHL. WHAL, you know what I'm saying? Too many of these so far already. But and when they went on, it was always the champions were playing a best of 3 series. So I mean, if you talk about a comparison to like the 7-game series that we know now, wouldn't that be against the integrity of the cup? Bullshit. Whenever team, just like you boys said, whenever teams are competing for it, as long as it's a level playing ground, let's go.
we
Absolutely.
got
Let's go.
Yeah, and Lone Star 0571 saying my Blues were just going to repeat anyway. Hey, as long as they repeat by not beating the Flyers, you can have another one. I don't give a shit. Doesn't
We'll
bother
see.
There
me.
was a good chance. There's a good chance that the Blues are playing good hockey all year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we shall see. We shall see. So enough chit chat because I know this bracket's going to take forever. So
Oh yeah.
let's get into this for
And,
the sake of our producer. I'm going to start to share
yeah.
my screen here.
Okay then. And John Perry, yes, the Rangers do make the playoffs here in this format. All right.
I
So
think they
now
wouldn't make
that
the playoffs in any format. They were
yeah,
just
pretty
way
much.
too hot.
So we get started off. Okay, so we'll start off here on the West, and our first matchup is our number 6 seeded team in the Edmonton Oilers and our number 12 seeded Chicago Blackhawks.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I mean, you got a team that wouldn't have made the playoffs in the Blackhawks, and this is one of the teams that are sub 500 with a 457, and the Edmonton Oilers that were in prime position meeting in the first round. And this could be very dangerous for said Edmonton Oilers because Blackhawks have a ton of experience, so to say.
A lot of experience, and they got some really good young talent as well. Goaltending is obviously my issue for the Chicago Blackhawks, and defense is getting older as well. Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook aren't the perennial all-stars that they were a couple years ago. Seabrook was actually talked about being moved out of Chicago, and obviously that didn't happen. But with the contract that he signed, that kind of made him a little bit immovable. But moving forward, this could absolutely be a dangerous series for Edmonton. With, like you said, Rob, the experience that they have. But Edmonton, on the other hand, has Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid leading the charge. So those two alone could be a problem for Chicago.
They could be tough, and they could be tough to manage for an older defense that may not be as fast as they are, or may not be as prepared for them as other defenses may be. The only question mark is like you were saying, Bri, Corey Crawford, who you have criticized heavily during this regular season, which is understandable because he does not look like the Corey Crawford that won 2 Stanley Cups at all.
No, he was never a good regular season goaltender to begin with. He was just He was good in the playoffs. It was good when it mattered.
Yeah, true. And on top of that as well, Mike Smith is in goal for the Edmonton Oilers, which sometimes he has been questionable. But to be fair, though, he has put on some great performances. It's just a shame that he was backstopping the Coyotes when the defense was okay. But unfortunately, they fell right the hell apart when it came against the Kings. And then he went to Calgary, and Calgary just said, hey, man, can you stop 50 shots a night? And Mike's like, I'm not a goddamn machine. And that's what led to Colorado moving on last year. So, when I look at it, I would say this series does favor Edmonton. Chicago does have the experience edge, but I would say this will probably go a little bit longer than people realize. I think some people looking at this just kind of observingly and not necessarily knowing too much about the teams, they would say, this series is like a sweep or in 5 for the Oilers. I'd say it'd probably be 6. I think Chicago would get at least 2 wins on Edmonton. I think they both, though, would happen in Chicago, though.
Best of 5, Matty.
Oh, my bad.
First round, best of 5, but still.
I forgot all about that. But my point is I think that this would end in 5, honestly, because I think looking at it from a glance, some people may be a little bit surprised at how this goes, with Edmonton and Chicago. You may not think the Blackhawks have anything. The Blackhawks coming off of a rest, they may have something to prove here against Edmonton. And meanwhile, Edmonton, they're going into this first round. They're thinking like, we got Chicago. Chicago's been shit all year. And Chicago was starting to kind of turn it around. They weren't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but they were a mediocre hockey club. But mediocre hockey clubs have upset teams in the past. I don't think it happens here, though. I think Edmonton does finish them off, but I think it happens in 5. I think Chicago gives them an actual fight, and they're surprised by it.
I mean, to be honest with you, I'm with you, Matty, and I wouldn't be that surprised. Like you were saying, Chicago's starting to make the turn. They're starting to put the rookies and the young studs in their spots, and they're starting to play. Kirby Dach is example number 1. Kirby Dach is a very good young stud of a winger for Chicago, and he's going to be an issue. He's going to be an issue going forward for a team essentially anybody going up against the Blackhawks, especially if he gets up to that top line with Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane. So, I mean, I'm not that surprised. I think it does go 5. I do think Edmonton does win the series, but I don't think it's going to be easy for him.
I don't think so. I don't think it'll be easy for him at all based on, what we talked about. Getting back a couple points, Mike Smith, he actually has posted pretty good numbers on the season, 295 goals against and a 902 save percentage, which is always good on the plus side of 900. That was hurt a little bit with some early season struggles, but he was hot as of late, at least the last 10 games coming down the stretch. So good goaltending will benefit them. A better goal differential in the season. Edmonton a +8, whereas Chicago was a -6. And most importantly, Edmonton was 20-14-3 on the road. So obviously, when you're trying, they'll have the home ice advantage in this, premise, getting the first 2 games, and then you go to the second 2 games in Chicago, they have a high likelihood of taking one of those 2 to get a third, like a 3-round win on to the second round. But I'm not going to predict games because right now we're doing this simulation. I like there's too much unknown of where players will be at the given time that this can be enacted. So I'm just going to pick winners, and I'm going to go with Edmonton as well, fellas, moving on to the second round.
Okay, then. So we got Edmonton moving on. And then after that, we have the Winnipeg Jets meeting up with the Arizona Coyotes. And this is actually kind of intriguing because you have the older team facing the now team, which is kind of weird, even though technically they're different clubs, but still it's kind of funny how you have that parallel between the team that was the Winnipeg Jets and the team that is currently the Winnipeg Jets.
The old Jets and the new Jets. The old Jets and the new Jets. It's like what that play with the Sharks and the Jets, but it's just Jets.
Oh, West Side Story.
Yeah, it's just Jets versus Jets.
So
this is one of my more favorite one to research. I like for that to that point.
So I could just see everybody in Jets jerseys and Coyotes jerseys singing whatever the fuck that song was before they had the fight in the fucking rooftop.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
and
Now
they're snapping their
Winnipeg.
fingers too.
Now the current version of the Winnipeg Jets are the 6th seed with a 514 win percentage, and the Coyotes are one of those teams with a sub 500 that are on the bubble with a 464. And one thing I told you this, Maddie, about, and I alluded to it earlier in the show about the disparity between the Eastern Conference and Western Conference. Winnipeg is one of 3 teams in the West to have a 514 win percentage, and they rank 6, 7, and 8. Can you guys tell me in the East who has a 514 win percentage and where do they lie in the standings?
I think I think it was in the bottom seeds, and I think it was
Florida Panthers.
Correct. Florida
yeah.
Panthers at 10 with a 5. They're the 10th seed with a 514 comparison to the Western Conference seeing as high as a 6 seed with a 514. So advantage East in any format that you can devise this year.
Yeah,
I just want to give a
absolutely.
little. Hold on, real quick. I'm going to give a little shout out to Clinky. He's
Yes,
saying
sir.
love and miss you guys. Hope everybody's well and healthy. Not the same sitting on the couch every week. We miss
Yeah.
you too, buddy.
We love
Cheers.
you
Miss you
too,
too.
Mikey, man. Take care of yourself, brother.
Salute, amigo.
All right.
See. So I'll just go right into my pick. I'm going with the current version of Winnipeg to take this series, and I don't think it'll be close. I think they'll take it in pretty convincing fashion. You look at two of the things that I really delved in terms of my simulations and goal differential. Again, Winnipeg actually a plus 13, really good on the season, whereas whatchamacallit, the got lost in my notes. Arizona Coyotes with a plus 8, still pretty good. I mean, relative middle of the pack, but I definitely got to give advantage Winnipeg, especially at home. Good home record up there, and the fans in Winnipeg will be juiced for this series.
Yeah, they will. And by the way, good evening, Nicole. How's it going?
What's up, Nicole?
And Joe's saying, do any of y'all have a 9-12 seed going to the conference semis? Well, you'll just have to wait and see. Let's see here.
I got a couple
Can't
upsets.
reveal.
I got a couple upsets.
You
Yeah,
can't reveal.
so let's see here. For me in this series, I would say Winnipeg does take it, but I think Arizona gets at least a win. I think they do get a win, and I'd say they get it in Arizona. But because I mean, Arizona. Here's the weird thing. This is a team that wasn't. This was a team we really thought was going to do something this year. You know, they got Phil Kessel, and we thought, okay, this is the veteran they needed to kind of put the young guys over the edge. And it looked like this was a team that could possibly make a run. They had Darcy Kemper too on top of it, which helped everything as well. But
Did
my
graphic go away?
yes, it did.
Let me see if I can. Oh, I'm sorry.
But the biggest, it's okay. But the biggest thing that happened was Arizona just had a very bad problem with consistency. Once again, just a problem with this team not gelling for whatever reason. I don't know what it is. Is it the system that they have under? Wait a minute, is Dave Tippett still the coach out there?
No, I think it's Rick Tocchet.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's Rick Tocchet now. That's right. Thank you. Maybe they're struggling under Tockett's system. Maybe they're not being consistent enough. Maybe the young guys are not adapting well. Maybe the veterans aren't adapting well. I mean, it's just Taylor Hall has not exactly had a massive impact on Arizona like we thought he would. It's just I don't understand what happened with Arizona. It just seems like they had another false start for them for a team that looked like they're on the upswing, but they can't seem to get it going. They really can't seem to. And it's a shame because it's a team that has a lot of young talent, but they just cannot get it together, at least consistently enough to be a threat.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they haven't really had a goalie in a couple of years since they lost Mike Smith. They never really had a decent defense since the Western Conference Finals team, and that plays a huge toll. Rob, what was the goal differential for Arizona again?
Goal differential, Arizona plus 8.
All right, so the defense is playing a little bit better. Maybe the offense is playing, playing better earlier on. Obviously, they were in first place in the Pacific Division at one point, and then they just seem to have collapsed. So, I mean, it could be a number of different reasons why they're having issues right now. It could be an internal thing. Could be the fact they brought in Taylor Hall and Phil Kessel. Maybe they're just not meshing well. Could be a coaching system. Don't really know. But ever since the Taylor Hall trade, teams kind of been going downhill.
Yeah,
So
it's a shame.
I don't see Arizona beating Winnipeg. I think Winnipeg is too good of a team. And like you were saying, Maddie, they're kind of on a downfall. I mean, I see Winnipeg pretty handily winning this series.
Yeah, I would say that. And Nicole saying hanging in there. Thank God it's Thursday. I get to relax after a long day of work with y'all. Well, we are happy to have you, Nicole.
Always happy to have you.
And Joseph Orkoff saying same 16 teams is perfect. Matter of fact, forget the top 3 in division bullshit. Just make it the best of 8 teams in each conference again. That was not an unfair system. And Crone said, hey, fellas, disagree with the poll. Yes, and the poll is the Stanley Cup playoffs should be extended. Agree or disagree?
No way.
I agree, personally, for the circumstances of this season, I think they should be.
Yeah.
If it was regularly every year, I wouldn't want that. I would say it's fine if you keep it with the 8 and 8 in the conferences. You can change how that happens, though, you know?
Well,
No,
I mean, I define it as extending by extending to the bubble teams. And I think if you have the time now, if you don't have the time and it's a choice between having the playoffs and not having the playoffs, then fine, don't extend it. But if you have the time and the players propose that they certainly can do this late into the summer, into the fall, you know, how can you ignore teams like the Rangers that were surging? As much as I hate them, right? You can't ignore teams like that were making the surge and could have done some or made some noise with 12 to 14 games. I think you have to extend it in some form or fashion.
no, I'm with you both. You got to extend it at this point for those teams because for all we know, they could have kept staying hot and they could have wound up making the playoffs. You don't extend it, those teams get shafted.
Yeah. All right, now let's see here. So we have Winnipeg moving on all around, and so far no disagreements. We go Minnesota Wild and the Calgary Flames. Minnesota was an interesting team this year. They were a team that was mediocre, and they were staying mediocre. I think that defines their year. Mediocre is probably the best way to talk about it. You know, they had a rough go of it and then they fired Bruce Boudreau. They started to turn it back around after that, and since then, though, they were hovering. They were either in the wild card spot or they were out of the wild card spot. They could not nail it down, and they were not consistent going into this unwanted break here in the regular season.
It's kind of hard not to be more mediocre than the Minnesota Wild have been. Their goal differential, 0.
That says it all right there.
Smack dab in the middle. Not good, not bad. Just fucking mediocre.
Oh, man. And then, obviously, the Flames. This is a team that we thought were going to have a good run this year, and they have had everything that could go wrong to them has happened this year. Offense has been bad. Injuries have happened. The coach got fired for indiscretions that were not on the ice. It's just, damn, like, literally, this season has had its way with Calgary, and it will never be the same again, and it will have PTSD for years and years to come after the shit they've been through this year. It's been a rough year for them.
Yeah, unfortunately it has been, and they didn't come around like I thought they would after firing Bill Peters, and they started to for a little while. Then they kind of fell off again. This Calgary team is too good to be where they are. You know, you got Sean Monahan and Johnny Gaudreau, and you bring in I think Milan Lucic is there now, and so's Mike Smith. Or no, sorry, Mike Smith went to Edmonton.
Yep.
They're too good. I mean, maybe Dave Riddick isn't as good as we thought he was. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's just their coach's system. I can't really pinpoint what really happened with Calgary this year. All I know is they're an extremely talented team, and they should not be sitting at the bottom of the barrel with an under 500 record.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no excuse for that. And Clinky's saying disagree. I understand that what you were saying, but there's no need to make the playoffs longer unless you go to a 5-game series. It would be crazy to do 7-game series with more teams. Yeah, and that's exactly, if you are going to extend the playoffs, you do 5 games for the first round. You don't do 7 games for each round. That's too much.
And I'm even fine with it being a best of 3 and then a best of 5 all the way to the cup.
Or
Even if you have to adapt to that, I'm
And
fine
then
with
we'll have
I'm
the
good with the
conference
best of
finals.
5, and then
And
have the
then
best of 7 be the
well,
cup.
would you say? Well, okay.
like that.
Now, in Rob, in your scenario, you would have the best of 3 for the first round, best of 5 for the second round. Would then be the conference finals would be a 7-game series with the Stanley Cup? No. Okay.
What I was saying, even if the extreme that I was describing was best of 5 all the way to the cup, but I like what
Okay.
Daly threw in there, that the only
Gotcha.
best of 7 is the cup.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
I like
Okay.
that. That would
And
be nice
Nicole,
too. You could keep our same format, but just adjust the games. Yep.
true.
Exactly.
And Nicole saying would definitely be interesting to have a best of 5 instead of 7. I'd be interested in watching the games, more fire under the players' asses to get the cup. Yeah, true.
Yeah, absolutely. Because could potentially be playing 3 less games throughout the entire playoffs. So,
True.
I mean, you never know.
And Mikey's saying big time for sure. It would be tough, but would be fun. It's true. Would be fun. And Just Horkoff saying, fuck it. Straight to 5-round shootout, best of 3 all the way to the cup. No shootout playoff format here. Absolutely not. We will never get out of the first round. All right, moving on.
Crack another one. 36 minutes into the show. That's not good. That's not a good sign.
It's because they mentioned shootout. But anyway, all right. Minnesota and Calgary. I will go with it just depends on what team doesn't suck less in this series. And I will say I'll go to Minnesota. I think Minnesota would actually win, but I think it would be in 5. But it'd be one of those series where you look back on it's just like Calgary's had a rough go of it this year. I think it'll just be the cherry on top. Just like, all right, guys, it was a bad year. Let's put this one in the fucking fireplace and forget it ever happened. I mean, is this rest possibly the thing that could save Calgary? Yes, it is quite possible. But at the same token, it also could save Minnesota too on top of it because both teams were not doing well, and a long rest may help recharge the batteries for both teams. Really,
yeah. Everybody's in that same playing field, Maddie. So I mean, like that's going to be an effect for both of them, and everybody's going to have that advantage. Now, where it hurt was what the matchup would have been, and how teams were scuttering into the playoffs, kind of a la Mikey's Pittsburgh Penguins. Facing them now is going to be light years different than facing them then. But in Calgary's case, the same thing applies, believe it or not, because the last 10 games they were surging. And they were especially surging on the road, where overall they had a 20-14-3 record on the road. And that's always great when you can play away from your home building. Their problem was they were only 3 games over 500, in the Saddle Dome. So, to balance that out, a better road team will be a mediocre team. This is my first upset. I'm going with Calgary in this series.
Listen, Rob, I'm with you 100%. I'm not sold on Minnesota. I'm not sold on Devin Dubnyk. He had a couple good years. Yeah, he had a good year 2 years ago in Minnesota, but the defense is okay in front, but there's no real offensive threat. They signed Matt Zuccarello, but what's he really done this year? He's put up some solid numbers, but not the numbers he was putting up in New York or even, no, I'm right. Even before New York, because even in his little stint in Dallas, he didn't do much there. A couple points. But there's no real offensive threat. At least with Calgary, you got Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan, just to name a couple. They're obviously their 2 biggest players. And then on the defensive side, Minnesota has Ryan Sutter. Calgary has Mark Giordano. I think either one of those 2 guys leading my team. But ultimately, I'm just not sold on Minnesota's offense. I think Calgary wins this one.
All right.
Dangerous in a 5-game series, the Calgary Flames.
So from 1 vote of Minnesota to 2 votes to Calgary, Calgary gets the chip. They move on to the second round. All right then. So moving on, the Vancouver Canucks, the Young Bucks. Here we go against the Nashville Predators, the older team. And yes,
Who? Oh, the Bucks of Youth. Yes, I know them well.
Yeah. And the Bucks of Youth of Vancouver up against the Nashville Predators. I would say I would actually go Vancouver here. Honestly, I think Nashville does still have some offensive punch to them, but we've been watching Pecorine slowly start to decline here. And the thing is about that, if you don't have a goalie that's on fire going into the postseason, even if you're coming off of a break, if he's not 100% ready to go, in a 5-game series, you could be out pretty quickly. And Rene has not been the same goalie that he used to be. I actually give this to Vancouver. I think the young kids have a lot to prove, and I think they want to win a series here, and I think they'll want it just a little bit more than Nashville will. And I think they'll move on to the next round. And I think Nashville is not the same team that they used to be. By any stretch, they're not as dangerous as they were. Just you could fast forward it to rewind it to last year. They were much more dangerous last year than they were this year, and this year's been a rough year for them all the way around.
Well,
Lost Labby his job.
yeah, I mean, unfortunately, to Nashville's defense, they've dealt with some pretty big injuries this year. I know Roman Yossi missed some time. Philip Forsberg missed some time. So that definitely hurts your team there. But I don't know. I like the experience on Nashville's side against Vancouver. Vancouver's got a lot of young talent that hasn't seen a playoff game yet. I like I like the goaltending. I like Pecorine more than I like Markstrom in Vancouver. So that's again, you're looking at experience versus guys who have never seen a playoff game. Vancouver did a good job of bringing in the young guns and filling in the veteran leadership, bringing in guys like JT Miller, and having oh crap, what the hell's his name? Used to play for Dallas.
Shit. I'm drawing a blank on him too. Ah, great. We're doing a real great job.
I was looking at numbers and I totally was not listening to what you were saying, Brian. I apologize.
No, it's all good.
Who are you thinking of describing?
Right winger used to play for the Dallas Stars.
And he's on Vancouver now.
He's in Vancouver now. He's a big name player in Dallas. He used to play on the line with Mike Modano.
Son of a bitch.
No, hold on.
The funny part is I'm looking at him right now. I can see I can see the profile of him on NBCSN right the fuck now.
I can see his number, I can see his jersey, but I can't think of his name. But anyway,
I can't think of his fucking name.
Moving forward. So I mean, you still got the young talent of Elias Pettersson, Brock Boucher, Quinn Hughes, Jack's older brother.
I think he's the older brother.
So I mean, the talent is there for Vancouver. They're going to be a good team moving forward. The future is bright, but they got to get that playoff experience. I don't think they have enough leadership to really get them to push against Nashville. And Nashville, once they get healthy, they're going to be a very dangerous team, especially once Philip Forsberg and Roman Yossi get back to playing shape. And I think Philip Forsberg was starting to find his groove as the season ended.
All right, then. So you vote Nashville, I vote Vancouver. Rob, what you got?
Right here, this is one of the closest matchups when you're talking win percentages. Only a difference of 7/100th of a point between Vancouver and Nashville, as you can see on your screen. In a coin flip, and 8-9's always. Well, in this case, often the coin flip is what would it be? 7-8 or what have you in the Sweet 16. But anyway, getting back to my point here, I'm going to go with Vancouver just because, they have a lot of scoring depth. Really good home team, 22-9-4, plus 11 goal differential on the season. Unfortunately, they were sort of, they started off really hot and they were tops in the leagues for the first half of the season. They were fading down the stretch. So this break is definitely going to benefit them a little bit more than I think with Nashville, who had a -2 goal differential on the season. I'm going to go with Vancouver here.
All right, then. So 2 votes to 1, 2 for Vancouver, 1 for Nashville. Vancouver moves on. And Joseph Horakowski saying, y'all keep talking about fans being crazy hype for this series, but Dr. Fauci said only way we're having playoff games is if it's at a neutral sites at empty stadiums.
I'm good with that.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm good with that too.
hey, you know, it is what it is. And Richard Esbenson saying, gonna sound like a Pee Wee game in the stadiums.
Hey, listen,
And
it's all well and good, but
Eh.
as long as we get playoff hockey, the players are still going to play with the same level of emotion. But I know a lot of those players do thrive off the crowd, but I don't see it changing. I don't see it changing anything in the way that these teams and players are going to come out and play these playoff games with or without a crowd.
True, and Nicole saying, my money is on Predators winning versus the Canucks. She also said, as a Tampa Bay Lightning fan, I would like to see the Calgary Flames out of the playoffs ASAP, which, come on, Nicole, it's a little harsh. I mean, you guys did beat them in the Stanley Cup Finals, Like, you guys did beat them.
Louis Eriksson, I knew it.
Louis Eriksson.
That's it. Louis Eriksson. Damn it. Jesus. Jesus. All right. James Shelf.
I thought it was Michael Ferland, but he was from Calgary.
Yeah.
Louis Eriksson, that's who it was.
Mm-hmm.
And James Shalva third saying Vancouver, the energy would prevail in this one. I don't think the defense can keep up with them.
Yes.
Good point.
I mean, it's a very fair point. Nashville's
young.
A little older on the defensive side, but again, you got that experience over. They were just recently in the Stanley Cup Finals within the last couple of years. I like the speed, and I love the young talent in Vancouver. Future's bright there. I just don't think they win this series.
All right, then. So with that, we'll go to the East and take a look over here in the first round. Or unless you guys want to finish out the West before we do the East.
That's your call, man. You run the show, dude. I could switch over to the East, or we could go all the way through this side of the bracket.
I was just being democratic, so no problem. We'll switch on over to the eastern side of the bracket.
It's funny. I always thought this was a dictatorship.
Okay, then. What kind of dictator? Like, are we talking like Roman, like Caesar style, or are we talking like, really bad Germany, shit? Are we talking here?
I'm not going to go that far.
Okay.
Listen. I blew that line way up last week. So
yes, you did.
And
I was trying to get you to do it again, but you didn't take the bait. God damn it!
We're gonna stay over here. We're gonna stay on this side of the line tonight.
That's what I'm saying.
Going back to Joe's before too, or whatnot. I hear what you're saying, man, and there may be a situation because even when the world does restart, there's still going to have to be social distancing practices 12 months into advance. So what's feasible about having arena games or arena shows? But I'm just thinking positively that we'll be able to get this off in this fashion, even if they're empty arenas, but be able to have the events in all the states come August, September, and you can still do the playoffs at that point because the players are for that in terms of going right from the playoffs with a short layover into the following season. So
absolutely.
I'm just trying to stay positive, brother. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm with you on staying positive. Give September those guys a little time to relax, catch their breath, spend a little bit of time with the family,
right.
And then you have your little break for the draft and NHL free agency, and then come October, you jump right back into it.
I was watching an Instagram live with Katie Emmer and Taryn Hatcher for total journalistic reasons, and they made a great point.
You're a liar because I watched for the same reason you did.
Did you think you were gonna slip that one by?
For journalistic reasons, my ass.
Maybe spank bank reasons, but okay.
But I mean, they made a good point that there's two facets to this. There's, the teams that are playing late into this playoffs are going to be such to the advantage come the start of the regular season, but yet then longevity will come, creeping its ugly head. Whereas other teams who either don't make this playoff format or get knocked off early are going to have even further time. I think the key thing, and this was the point that I will give credit to both of those fine young women, is that this is the off season. Use it like it's the off season now, and then put your head down. And if any sport can do it, it's hockey.
Frodo, I was watching for totally the same reason.
Fine women. I'm putting that out there. Those are two fine women.
They read my comment too. They read my comment. I asked them, I was like, hey, any word on how Oscar's doing right now? And they loved it. And I mean, you know, I was coming from a genuine, authentic place with that. And they were like, you know, talking about what they know, but they were like, oh, be sure to follow him on his socials for his latest updates. I went to follow him and he hasn't posted in like quite a while. And I'm like, you know, was that just the journalistic thing to say? Like, oh yeah, follow him on his social medias, you know?
Yeah, Oscar Strong. There we go. Got the shirt. Got the shirt. All right.
Yeah, big.
So
Anyway.
Now we move on. Western Conference. Daniel Linsky saying, okay, if they do finish the season and we get a cup winner, who will be at the parades? I've said it before. Hazmat gas mask. I'm right fucking there. I don't give a shit. And then Nicole saying virtual parade style. That ain't a bad option either. Actually, I said this on...
because it's not as fun.
But here's the thing. I said this on Lazy Booking, and this would be kind of funny. What if they had, like, a stream where you just saw the Flyers or whomever wins the cup getting drunk by drinking out of the cup and seeing what the fuck happens? I would watch that. I would watch that to see just how fucking crazy that shit would get. It would be fucking hilarious. I can guarantee you that.
Hey, some of these remote shows, ours included, been quite entertaining. Why can't you do something special in this case too? And then, when it's safe, then you have the parade.
True. It's possible. It's possible.
It's not that bad. It's not a bad way to go.
And he said, Joseph Workout saying, no one there won't be.
No one, sir.
There's the
understands my pain. Yeah.
There's the optimistic. Yeah. All right, let's see here. On to the Eastern Conference.
I heard
the Pittsburgh Penguins up against the Buffalo Sabres. I feel bad for Buffalo here. They drew a tough opponent, and it's not a favorable series for them. Yeah, I think Pope's got it right. It's a sweep. It's a 3-0 series. 3-game series. Pittsburgh moves on to the second round. Couldn't made it easier for Crosby and those shit-sucking Penguins, could you? Great job, NHL. Great job.
This is the one fault of going by the win percentage, like I said at the beginning of the show, because really Montreal should be in this spot. And if Montreal was in this spot, that would be a much better series. But we got to stay true to the win percentages, and it is Buffalo. But one thing that it would carry is a potential marquee matchup for years to come between Sidney Crosby, who's a little bit longer in the tooth, but still an overall young player, against Jack Eichel. That would be a matchup to watch.
We gotta take a time out here real quick. Brodo. So
yes.
Who are they talking about in the chat?
They're what?
I saw the comments in the A2D talk chat. Who are they talking about?
Who are they? A female?
Yeah. Who's Chucks and Pete talking about?
I don't know her name. Why?
I'm just curious. I didn't get to see the picture. I saw your comment saying, "Oh, here we go."
Is this really the place for this?
Yes, absolutely.
Apparently. But anyway, Nicole saying you can't get arrested, by the way, for being plastered in your own home. Kind of true, but you know what?
You can get plastered in public and not get arrested. Just don't act like a jackass.
True, but here's the thing, though. If you put alcohol, but here's the thing. If you have Giroux, Cup, and alcohol, he's going to play grab ass, and that's going to get him arrested. So, you know,
you can't be any worse than Rob Thomas. You can't be any worse than Robert Thomas and puking on yourself in the parade.
That's true. That's a good point. I forgot about that. That's a good one. That's a
fabulous
good one.
Comment.
Oh man! All right.
You didn't have to send me that. I can't look at it. I'm on my phone.
All right.
Figure it out. Figure it out.
I was just wait. I didn't know if you knew who it was or not.
we had a total meltdown right here in the middle of the fucking bracket. But anyway, actually not even middle. We haven't even gone through the East. All right.
What else?
And
No.
and
Good
Nicole.
point, Nicole. My bad. I'll work on it next time.
you say?
Good one. Nicole saying should have come on saying you rang. Like what was his name in the Addams Family?
Lurch.
Lurch. Thank you. All right.
You rang.
Yeah, you rang. All right, moving on.
Should get a creaky door sound for every time he pops on too.
Then, if we're going to do that, we all have to dress up as one of the members of the Addams Family. I'll do Cousin Knit. I can just put my hair in front of my face and just wear my glasses over my hair, and then that'll be perfect. You won't be able to understand a single thing I fucking say, but there you go. Anyway.
That's all you, Maddie. I'm not doing that.
What? You won't dress up? You'd be
No.
perfect. Well, Rob will be Gomez. You're going to be the dad, which means you get to be the son. You're the son. Fry's the son. Yes, he is. I've officially decided that.
It's better than being Uncle Fester.
I would not have done that. I would not have given you the Uncle
opposite
Fester.
of Pugsley.
Once I shave my head, I'm gonna totally look like Uncle Fester. I'm waiting for the hate that I'm gonna get from
Uncle
trolls.
Fester.
Like I'm gonna get so much trolls. Yeah, like whenever it's safe to go to a barber, I'm shaving my head. I'm going dicked.
So
Don't even
so
look close to Pugsley.
So, what? What's wrong with being Pugsley? You get to be Pugsley there, Brian.
I'm not fat.
You get to sleep in a nail bed. Like, what's
I'm
wrong
not
with
that. I'm just big bone.
that? All right, moving on. Speaking of the Addams Family, a little bit of a horror show. The Toronto Maple Leafs. Let's see here. The Maple Leafs up against the Columbus Blue Jackets, and to be honest with you, even with the rest, I still don't know if I like Toronto's shot here. I actually think Columbus wins this. I think it's an upset, and I actually think it goes 5. It does go 5, but I think Columbus takes it because Columbus is one of those teams where they're a goddamn cockroach. You can stomp the shit out of them, but those motherfuckers will just find a way to win goddamn games and will be unapologetic about it and smile and be like, hi, even though no one gives a shit about us as a team, we're still here. We're still kicking. Fuck you guys. You're becoming the new goddamn New Jersey Devils. And no one will fucking wanted that. But anyway,
I agree
Sorry.
with you. I've been down on Toronto for most of the season, and maybe that was the basis of why I also had this as an upset on my east side of the bracket. Columbus is a 500 team, but they were a 500 team minus a lot of pieces. Now, some of those pieces are playing for other NHL organizations, but in this case, going down the stretch before we had the season suspended, they also had a lot of people on the injury list recuperating. They're all going to be back and healthy, and they're going to come back to that team that was exceeding expectations. And I think they win this series, and they win it handily.
And that's jumping off of Joseph's comment. He was saying that the Jackets, Canes, and the Islanders were falling off towards the end of the season. They were, but I think the Jackets were more of an injury issue. The Canes weren't playing well, and the Islanders weren't playing well. It was mostly injuries with the Jackets.
The Canes were injured in the goaltending situation.
That's true. They were.
Right.
Yeah, so I'll be the odd man out. I got Toronto winning the series. I think Toronto's the better team. I think they have more offensive threats moving forward, and I think Columbus might be the better defensive team. And Rob, you bring up a great point in the fact that there's still a competing team with the amount of talent that they lost over this past offseason. But Toronto started off a little slow, and now they're starting to find their skating legs. So they're starting to compete a little bit more. They fired Babcock, which I think was something that they needed, and they're getting healthy as well. They got Morgan Riley back towards the trade deadline, and he's kind of been their defensive juggernaut, and the guy that's kind of been holding the defense together. So they're playing better in front of Freddie Anderson, who's been playing a little better as the season has gone on. I don't know. I think Toronto wins this one, and I think Toronto actually winds up winning this series very handily. I think it's a dominant win for them because they need it. They need to make a statement win in these playoffs.
It's distinctly possible. They're a talented team. as much as I was sullen on, I question a lot of the heart on that team. But they could sometimes talent can over trump heart.
No, I kind of agree with that. I like that where you're thinking though. They were lacking heart earlier on in the season, which is I think why they struggled like they did. But after changing the head coach and changing the voice in the locker room and a lot of leadership, I think you're starting to see that, that heart coming back. You're starting to see Toronto get back to where they were. Tavares was back on his offensive tear. Austin Matthews was being Austin Matthews again. Like I said, a lot of guys getting healthy again. And, one of the big things was Freddie Anderson struggling early. He had seemed to be finding his way to get some steady play going.
Right.
All right, then. So 1 vote for Toronto, 2 for Columbus. Columbus does move on. Nicole did say have the Leafs winning. And she also said I would love to fuck them up in the next round.
She's a smart girl. I like her.
And she also says fuck the Blue Jackets up too. Oh well, yeah, the Blue Jackets can go fuck themselves pretty much in general.
Oh, I'm not sure if you guys can make it out because you're probably watching on your phones, but what happens there is, let me get to the graphic myself. The Tampa Bay Lightning will be facing the second lowest seed in our tournament format. So that even though the line goes from that matchup directly to there, that was just a way I could graphically represent the teams moving on. But they're going to face the second lowest seed that makes it out of the first round.
Oh, whoops. That's not how I did my bracket.
Okay, then.
Well, my bracket's busted.
Just by accident. Oh, this is why they put the invisible walls in the bracket challenge on NHL.com. But anyway.
Dude, changing on the fly. That's the greatest feature in hockey. Matter of fact, I'm going to go change on the fly right now. I will be back with my range. Oh my god!
What the fuck?
What the hell is that?
Your new Facebook icon? Oh my god.
Ryan, you said very clearly you weren't a fat man, so I helped you.
I don't know how this helps.
You were trying to tell a story about the Addams family, and you couldn't visualize it, so I helped you. By the way, you rang?
Oh, boy.
Please tell me you're saving that one for later, Bruno.
It's here. Oh, it's here. It's here forever. Okay. It's here.
Okay, thank God. Whew. Don't know what we do.
I don't know whatever I did to you, Bruno, but I'm sorry.
You gave me an opportunity, Brian, and I took it like I always do.
Oh my God, Brian was one of the guys eating poutine and watching the Netflix instead of riding his Peloton during the lockdown. Oh my God. Okay.
I actually like poutine. Poutine's actually really good when it's made right.
RPMs in chat. Oh my God. Whew. All right. Well, I didn't realize I needed that. Ooh, but now I do. And James saying I can see the disdain on his face.
Yeah. Yeah, James. Absolutely.
Oh, man. Oh, good thing Brian's a good sport on these things.
Yeah, good thing.
Oh, man.
Where did Rob go? I think Rob just died.
I think he did. I think Rob's recovering. Holy
pretty
shit.
Sure he spit his beer out, too.
I think he did. I think he did do his spit take. And the shitty part of it is he has the graphic. So we don't even have it available right now. Oh, man.
I mean.
Well, actually, you know what? Hold on.
Just hold this up the whole time.
Yeah. I do like how you have the cup actually drawn in the middle. That's nice. But, okay, there we go.
There he is. He's alive.
Rob, you all right?
I had to break the seal.
Oh, okay. Perfect time to do it. Oh, man. And Nicole's saying he's going to be using that as his icon every now and then and going to keep you on your toes with that pick. Yeah, he is. You never know when Brodo's going to strike from now on.
He's a
Oh,
spiteful little
man.
thing.
What?
What?
Uh,
What?
It's like Austin.
What?
What? Stone Cold. What? All right, moving on. Okay,
Yes, please, let's move on.
so we have the
Classic
Blue
matchup.
Jackets. we have the Blue Jacks moving on. Now we've got the Rangers and the Florida Panthers. This would actually be the first time I think these two meet in playoff history because I don't think the Panthers ever met them the few times the Panthers have made the playoffs.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm sorry. I was mistaken. Oh, my fault.
Yeah, I think the Panthers faced the Bruins in the first round the year of the Rat, and then they faced the Flyers in the semifinals. I think they've missed the Rangers every time. No, you know what? The Panthers faced the Islanders that one year in the first round. It was the other New York team. But anyway, back to this year. So the Rangers and the Panthers, first ever meeting between these two. It's intriguing because you got one team. Both teams are very underdog. That this is an underdog matchup by every stretch of the imagination, and it's interesting because both teams were that way. It's not one team was dominant and the other team's an underdog, and it's an uphill battle. No, these are two very even teams. When you think about it, the Rangers have a nice offense. The Panthers, when they want to use their offense, it's nice. Bobrovsky could show up anytime he fucking wants to, though. And meanwhile, on the other hand, though, the Rangers, if Lundqvist winds up getting off the schneid and he becomes the Lundqvist that he can be, ooh, that's a tough challenge.
It won't be Lundqvist. It won't be Lundqvist.
No,
it's
it'd
going
be
to be
Prince
Igor.
Igor.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if he's on his game. It's still a very good matchup though between Bobrovsky and them. And Joe is saying Rangers 3 straight though. Hey, he does not believe in the Panthers at all.
I'm with Joe.
You don't believe in the Panthers at all?
No, I mean outside of Bobrovsky, where's the real threat? You had Vincent Trocheck. They traded him away.
They did. You are right about that.
They don't have Morgan Riley. I haven't had Morgan Riley in some time. I can't even think of anybody off the top of my head that could be a real scoring threat on that team.
Oh, Huberdeau.
The defense is Oh, yeah, you got Jonathan Huberdeau. You got Alexander Barkov. So I'll give you that. But I mean,
they got better defensively, and what they said was they weren't giving up on the season. They were sort of making addition by subtraction with Trocheck, like maybe he was damaged goods, but we never really got a chance to see that come to fruition. But I'm with you though, man, is that I just think that when you sacrifice scoring depth, like in a playoff structure against a team that has a lot of scoring depth, I mean, even down to players like D'Angelo on the Rangers, they're a really deep team in terms of their scoring prowess. And I agree with Joe. I think it could be a 3-0 sweep, but if you get Bob showing up, he could steal some games.
Yeah, Bob absolutely could, but I'm not sold on Florida. I expected Florida to be a top 3 team in their division this year, and they're fighting for a wild card spot.
True,
right,
and they have the weaker division in the Eastern Conference too. And
even with having Trocheck for a bulk of the season, they were still only +3 on the season, whereas the Rangers crept up to +12.
Yeah, I will say this.
Found their they hit the ground and started running at the trade deadline, even slightly before the trade deadline.
I will say
Rangers
this.
are white hot.
I will say that the Rangers do take this series. I think Bob does steal a game though. But I will say this: the one thing that's the true trump card for the Rangers is Zibanejad. I don't think the break's really going to stop him. I think he's going to come out and he's going to show, I'm this good, and I'm going to prove it to you guys right now. I mean, he had himself that game that we all recall. He scored 4 or 5 goals, and he scored 5, and he got the game winner on top of it. So it's just like that man was killing it. Yeah, people could say the break fucking ends that, but great players, they power through that. And I think Mika's one of those guys. He's one of those really great players that can get through shit like that. I think he'll be that trump card for them. I think he'll definitely be leading that team, scoring goals, and really just being a pain in the ass to the Florida Panthers defense.
Zibanejad isn't a surprise to me. the fact that he's as good as he is. The trade from Ottawa. Ottawa traded away Mika Zibanejad because they didn't think he was going to pan into anything special. Well, he sure showed them. This isn't the first year he's been flirting with 20, 30, even 40 goals. I believe he was around 30 last year. So this is no surprise. Mika Zibanejad is as good as advertised. And I think he's definitely going to be part of the reason why they pretty much dominate Florida.
Yeah, he had 30 goals last year, and he was sitting on 41 at play suspension this season.
Yeah. Yeah, this wasn't even his breakout. He's still very, very young as well. So Rangers have him locked up. He's going to be a key piece in their success.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that to me, I think that's the linchpin that really puts it into perspective there for the Rangers. I think he'll lead the way. You also have Trouba that you got to be careful of out there, and Panarin. So, you have three very devastating goal scorers right there who have proven goal scoring years under their belts. It's a tough sell for the Panthers to get through, but I do think Bob snags at least one game from them. But that's it. The Rangers do go on to the next round. And Nicole's saying, I'm excited for the random pop-up of that. To see y'all die laughing will make my day. Got to do something for the other boys now. Make it an even battlefield. No one will be safe then. He's very partial with his hatred.
He comes after me all the time.
That's not true. I go after Andy as well.
That's true. Andy, yeah, he does go after Andy. Yeah, did you show him the Andy alert? Do you have that available to you?
Andy alert.
You've seen the Andy alert? Yeah, the Andy alert's fucking great. Yeah, that shit's awesome. And that's the one for Chrome when he had the mustache.
Listen, like I would take that over what he did tonight.
Would you like me to try again?
Sure, Brodo. Go ahead, try again.
Brodo, try as many times. Better one.
Brodo, you try as many times as you like to make sure you get something perfect. It's your masterpiece. Remember, your show. We're just performing in it. All right.
Don't tell him that.
My best advice for you, Brian, as soon as we get back to studio shows, you should just walk up to Brodo and just cold cock him.
I'm thinking about a word.
This will be breaking news to you all. This will be the last time you see me, ever.
Oh, man.
I'll find you.
Phenomenally.
You can barely find yourself.
A quick aside. I was reading an interview from Gary Bettman, and within the interview, he said green light about 10 times throughout the article. So I do drinking game ideas. Every time you hear Gary Bettman speak or say, just take a drink during green light.
You
know what Jesus. I'm saying, Brian? You wrote about it in the description, Brian, Maddie, so you know what I'm talking about. But you can get probably a little bit less wrecked than I am at this point right now.
Oh my God! So
and we're only in the first round, guys.
Oh my God! So if you're that wrecked already, holy shit! I can only imagine how wrecked you'd be by the end of that green light. Oh my God! You would be crawling on the floor, just begging for death at that point in time. Like Jesus.
Guys like me and Wilson, we don't get wrecked. We just get inundated. Hype? Yeah, we get hyped. Yeah, we get hyped.
If Nicole saying Brodo is the puppet master, which by the way is a great horror series in case anyone's ever interested in watching one. Since you are stuck inside, if you are a horror movie buff, check that out. Yeah. Gets very C-movie-ish towards the end there, but that's the beauty of them. But anyway, all right, back to the bracket. We had the Rangers moving on all around the board, and now we go to our final Eastern Conference first-round matchup. Carolina and Islanders. These two were kind of skidding there towards the end, so it'll be a very intriguing matchup here. Whatever team kind of uses this break as sort of their saving grace towards them getting into this postseason. If I had to choose, I will go with the Islanders. Reason why is goaltending. And on top of that, I think the Islanders have a little bit more weapons on the offensive side, and I think Barzal will get them by, honestly. Also, Trotz, I think, will coach them into a good spot. Not to knock Rod Brendamore at all. I think Brendamore had a great coaching year last year and really showed that he is capable of being a head coach in the league. But I think Trotz will get the guys rallied a little bit quicker, because I mean, think about it. How many times did Washington get off to a hot start after the season got going under Barry Trotz? Almost every time. And so I think that would actually happen with the Islanders, and I think they would come out swinging. And I think the Hurricanes, I think they will try to handle it. If they get a game, I think it's one game, but I think it ends with the Islanders walking away into the second round.
Yeah, I completely disagree. I think it's the Islanders series. Goaltending is an issue on both sides. I don't think Semyon Varlamov has been quite the goaltender anybody expect him to be on Long Island. And obviously Peter Mrazek has been hit or miss all season long, which is why at the trade deadline, Carolina went out and got guys like even before the trade deadline, getting a guy like Jake Garner, getting Sammy Vatanen, and they picked up another defenseman who I'm blanking on right now. I've been trying to think of it all day, but I mean, I like the offense in Carolina a lot more than I like the Islanders. Maybe if the Islanders had actually gone out and gotten a guy like Zach Parise, maybe I could see them beating Carolina, but Matthew Barzal is kind of like you stop him, you're stopping the Islanders right now. Carolina at least has a couple of different weapons: Sebastian Aho, Andrei Svechnikov, and Nino Niederreiter. So, plus you got to remember they brought back Justin Williams, who's probably at his best in the playoffs. So I got Carolina winning this series.
All right, then. You have the games?
It'd be 3-1.
3-1? Okay. Rob.
I agree with Brian here. Actually, I'm going with Carolina, and I'll just address a couple of the points that you made, Maddie, is that, believe it or not, Carolina is a plus 29 on the season. They have a lot of underrated goal scoring on that team, and they're also a fine defensive team. So thus the higher plus minus goal differential. And the Islanders, who are supposed to be a highly defensive team in a Barry Trotz system, is actually a -1 on the season. So it's just not working anymore there on the island, despite the good goal scoring going on. They're just giving up too many goals. And I think with a healthier goaltending core than we saw when we last saw the Hurricanes play, I think they come out of the series. And I won't go into the games. I just think they'll take the series.
Gotcha. So Carolina moves on with the 2 votes. All right, then, and we move on. And Joseph saying Islanders and Lightning are the only 2 teams. I can't see the Flyers being a 7-game series. I can see the Flyers beating the Islanders. I can't see them beating the Lightning. That's where it gets a little hazy, is against the Lightning. All right.
Poor performances all season.
The Flyers have played very well inside their division all season long. So
yeah. And Nicole's saying, I think the Canes could make a comeback against the Islanders. It might be close, though 3-2 would be my guess. Okay. She sees the series much closer than what we see it at. All right, then. And moving on, we are now at our second rounds. Finally. And we will go back to the West. Time to go to the other side of the bracket once again. So let's take a look here.
I always give a little preview into what I'm doing, but fill in the bracket as you so see fit going along. But I don't know. I mean, I think that this will go faster as we go on. So hang with us. You know what I mean? Certainly, we're describing every team. We'll go through these matchups, and then like the third round, the conference finals, and of course the Stanley Cup finals will go a lot more quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the way we have this set up, since we had the Oilers moving on, they would wind up facing off with the Vegas Golden Knights in the way that this playoff format is set up. So let's do that matchup. The Oilers versus the Golden Knights.
I'm sorry, Maddie. We'll just throw a quick suggestion out. Rather than you having to keep track of which teams went, we'll just address the seeds 4 through 1, and we'll talk about who we had facing them in our individual brackets. Does that seem like a plausible suggestion? Because I don't know. I'm on almost end of number 2.
I was just doing it for the graphical purposes for the viewers, so that way we're all on the same page and we're not getting conflicting messages. Yeah, we're all
just go 4-1, and then we'll talk about who we have in that matchup. And in case Brian has to do a couple switcheroos, we'll get her done.
Oh,
I got to do a
okay.
lot of switcheroos. My entire bracket's busted now.
Okay. So, my matchup, Vegas and Edmonton. Wait, what is Joe saying?
He basically said, could you not give them the ability to update the bracket?
What did I do? Wait, whoa. What did I do?
It's what you didn't do.
How about this? Hold on. Don't blame Brodo. This is on me. Don't cheat ahead on me here. Hold on. This is how my bracket filled out at this point. Is that better?
I think that's perfect.
Joseph, do I need to make a meme of you now?
All right, so let's do. All right, I have the same matchup here at the bottom as you do, Rob. So Vegas and Edmonton, two teams that are very offensive minded. Goaltending is going to be interesting because you got Fleury on the other end and you've got Smith on the other side. And you have more of a goaltending tandem in Vegas, whereas Smith is the starting goaltender 110% in Edmonton, as Fleury and what was it? It was Lanier, I believe, who's in Vegas now. And they've been the tandem since
Fleury.
the trade deadline. What?
It's Marc-Andre Fleury.
I said Fleury and Lanier have been working together as a tandem. Yeah. Well, Smith has been the only starting goaltender for the Oilers all year.
True.
Okay.
But here's the thing. All right, so come playoff time, Robin Lanier is probably not going to see much playing time. And Robin Lanier only came over at the trade deadline shortly after. Actually, Malcolm Subban had a good game against Anaheim and then shipped them off to Chicago. So Lanier hasn't been in Vegas very long. At least with, Marc-Andre Fleury can see the bulk of the time for Vegas anyway. Unless he starts to struggle.
Well, that's the point. The point is that they've been worried about that, so that's why he's been brought there, and they realized they couldn't rely on Subban, so that's why they brought in Lanier. But with that, Vegas and Edmonton. Who do we see walking away? And Nicole's saying we'll open number 3 and let's go. I'd say based on the graphics, give your answers. Who would win? Then side note, who you all had winning. All right, so let's see. Knights and Edmonton. Who do we got winning this series?
Vegas.
I would say Vegas.
You see my answer right there on the screen there. And I mean, certainly in that scenario, I just feel that Vegas just has the more complete team. And when you look at the statistics overall in the season, a +16 versus Edmonton at a +8. So I give the advantage in goal scoring to Vegas. And, they're just everybody gets the Vegas flu when they come in. So in any series where they'll carry the home ice advantage there, assuming they are able to play at their home ice arena, I would give the advantage Vegas Golden Knights.
Joe is saying give me Edmonton over Las Vegas. Okay. Matthew Gregory saying Flyers winning. We'll get to that. And let's see here. But yeah, I vote Vegas. I think that's the only team that I saw in their division that I thought could stop them. Where Edmonton coming in as that offensive powerhouse, I thought that's the only team that they got to worry about. Everybody else they can beat. Vegas is the only team that can keep up with them and actually beat them, and I think Vegas will. All right.
I mean, Vegas, even under Peter DeBoer, has been a fairly unstoppable team.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's see. Next matchup, what we got up here at the top, we've got Colorado, and we've got the Calgary Flames up there. And in terms of that matchup, that's a rematch from last year. I still see Colorado winning.
Who had Minnesota?
I did.
You had Minnesota going?
Yeah, but go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'll go back to that particular bracket so we could see like who they would be facing. Like Minnesota would have been your second lowest seed, so they would have been facing the Blues in that
Okay.
matchup. So facing Colorado, your lowest seed would have been you picked Edmonton, Maddie. You picked the Jets. So lowest seed would have been Vancouver. So you'd have it as Colorado, Vancouver. That would be the difference
Oh,
in your particular bracket.
okay then. So yeah, so with me having an All Canada series there, well, not an All Canada series, it was Colorado and Vancouver. We got Colorado and Vancouver on this side, and you guys got Calgary and Colorado. Who do you guys think wins that series?
Colorado handily. We want to talk about an offensive juggernaut, an offensive powerhouse.
Yeah.
You're looking at the Colorado Avalanche.
Agreed. I mean, they're a long favorite of mine. We've talked coming out of the West, and I think they just trounced whoever they may be facing in the first round there. Could youth maybe creep its Achilles heel in a potential series as it goes along? That could be an argument against Colorado, but otherwise, their armor's pretty unchinkable.
Yeah, I agree. If it came down to Colorado facing off with Calgary, I would have Colorado winning. Same thing with my matchup. If they were facing Vancouver, I would say Colorado beats Vancouver as well. Two young teams, but I think Vancouver gets a big win against Nashville, but I think that series wears them down, and I think Colorado is ready to just buzzsaw them, and they buzzsaw them, and they move on to the next round. No offense to Vancouver, but you got a bright future ahead of you. Joe saying, I feel like you got to put the Blues back in the Cup Finals as the defending champs. Every team played their best game against St. Louis this season, and they still finished with the third best record in the NHL.
But it's so hard to be a repeat. It's not like any other playoff system where a team like the Blues can go back-to-back or even back-to-back-to-back. It happens so rarely. Pittsburgh was the first team to do it since I want to say it was Detroit? The Red Wings
Right.
were the last team to go back-to-back before Pittsburgh. And there was a good amount of time between those two.
Right. Good amount of time. Now, the one thing that would be a feather in the cap for the St. Louis Blues and Joe is that you have this time off now. You have the off season now instead of later. So that could definitely give juice back to them to make a nice long run when and these playoffs do commence. But I'm just with you, Brian. It's just hard to repeat in terms of game. It's more than energy. There's game strategy involved. There's also just the luck of puck luck, and to have that you need to have puck luck when it comes to the playoffs, and have that in 2 consecutive seasons. It's rare. And Vegas, to their credit, they lost their head coach too, head scratchingly this season, and somehow got better.
Yeah.
They're a really complete team. So now, mind you, you're seeing on your screen how I had it projected. That doesn't speak for where Maddie and Brian opinions lie. They may have St. Louis going further than I do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to – you know what? My bracket's kind of screwed up anyway. But the way I did my bracket, I had St. Louis losing in the conference semis. Because the way my bracket broke down, they played Colorado in the semis. And I think Colorado's a way better team.
Right. And I could see that equation happening in some form or fashion. And that's where I have them losing too. So, it is tough. You make a great point, Brian. There's a reason why it hasn't been done often in this league. Because, I mean, no disrespect to baseball's playoffs or football's playoffs, but Stanley Cup playoffs, or NBA's playoffs. Well, the NBA structure is very similar as well. I give credit to their tournament, but based on the physical nature comparison to the playoff structure, I think this is the hardest tournament in the 4 majors.
No, absolutely. I think it's the most unpredictable. Basketball, the NBA's playoff system is a little predictable because it seems to always be the same 4 teams going to the conference finals.
Right.
Who winds up being in the finals? It kind of rotates between the 4. Baseball's a little on the predictable side, but with hockey, like all you have to do is just get hot. You could be a low-seeded team and wind up getting as far as the conference finals. We've seen it. We've seen an 8 seed win the Stanley Cup Finals for the first time in NHL history, just maybe 10 years ago.
Ironically, right before they got rid of that structure too.
Mm-hmm.
But
so it's just it's so unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen in the series. For all we know, if this winds up being the playoff system and these are the teams that wind up being in, who's to say Chicago doesn't get all the way to the Stanley Cup Final?
Yeah.
Who's to say they don't upset everybody? That's how unpredictable it is. All you got to do is in the NHL playoffs is get hot at the right time.
True. Okay, so let's see. The next matchup that you guys got here up on the graphic, we got St. Louis and Vancouver. Obviously, from what Rob has, he has St. Louis moving on. Reason for it? Any?
I think, to the points that Joe made and Brian alluded to too, is that they can beat this Vancouver team because this Vancouver team is overachieving. They shouldn't have been here at this point, and eventually the experience that they gained from just a season ago in the playoffs alone, let alone maybe talent differential, should give them the feather in their cap.
Gotcha.
Yeah, absolutely. St. Louis, they're a very, very good team, and they are all in on Craig Berube's system, and it's just the experience that they gained from last year. I think beats Vancouver in this series.
In my matchup, I had St. Louis facing off with the Minnesota Wild. It really doesn't matter who they face. St. Louis is winning this series. And they move on to the next round. Minnesota is out, and that's a 7-game series in the second round. So I would say Minnesota probably loses in 5. Actually, that's even being generous, giving them 5. I think St. Louis will probably sweep them, to be honest with you. So I would say that's how that series goes, and St. Louis moves on to the third round.
Woohoo! Go St. Louis. Go Ozark. Yeah.
Brian, what did you have?
I don't know. St. Louis, I had against Winnipeg.
Okay, then. Who'd you have winning?
St. Louis.
St. Louis, okay. Okay, so we got St. Louis all around moving here. Okay, next match up. It's the same one that I have. Cool. It is Dallas and Winnipeg meeting up in this playoff. And I would say that there's got to be an upset somewhere. I think that this might be the upset. I would say Winnipeg moves on and beats Dallas.
Jump
on
the train.
It's going to have to happen in 7, though. I don't see Dallas going away quietly. And I think that this goes to a 7-game series, but I think Winnipeg stuns us and manages to make an underdog run and go to the third round here. All right.
Winnipeg's good. I think it would be a very good series. I don't think Dallas is going to go away that easy. I think Dallas actually wins that series. I have them beating Calgary in my bracket. I actually have them going all the way to the conference. I actually have them going all the way to the Stanley Cup Final. The Dallas Stars.
Wow, you have them as your representing the West, and that's understandable. Very talented team. They were slipping towards the end before suspending the league, so that goes out the window now. And to your point, Brian, they have been a fabulous road team. I zero in on 2 things when it comes to playoff predictions: goal differential and your road record. And Dallas had an 18-12-5 road record. So, only 1 game behind. They have a 19-12-3 home record. So, they could distinctly move on. I just feel like Winnipeg's going to go on a little bit of a run here because they have a plus 13 on the season and have a pretty decent road record themselves. So I was like, I smelled a little flaw in the armor of Dallas. So I was like, this is where my upset's going to be in the second round of the West. So, but I could see Dallas going on. I could.
Yeah,
but
the one thing I like about Dallas is the fact that they brought in the second captain. They brought in Joe Pavelski. That's a ton of leadership.
Right.
That's an extra voice in the locker room that's going to help keep these guys calm. And I think that's going to play a huge factor going forward, especially when you're playing a team like Winnipeg or, in my case, Calgary. And I agree with Nicole here. She says if Bishop stays healthy, I disagree. Stars will take it. That's going to be huge. Ben Bishop is really starting to find his way back to who he was when he first entered the league, being a top prospect.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to be a huge factor in getting to the next round for Dallas.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect. Definitely, he's the type of guy though. As he gets older, he needs a string of games to get healthy. I mean, not get healthy, to get in the swing of things. And coming in cold with the bye that Dallas gets, that's when you can take advantage of a goalie like Bishop. But if he gets hot, then that could definitely be, fitting to Brian's prediction of a Stanley Cup Finals appearance.
Anybody else hear that? What the hell is that tapping?
Tapping. It may be because I'm moving the logos on my bracket to match what I have. I think that's probably what you're hearing. But anyway.
My man.
Okay. So let's see here. So that's our second round predictions on the western side of things. It's time to flip this bracket and go to the east.
All right. Let's see if I can do this without giving the rabbit out of the hat. Almost.
It's all right. Okay. So let me see here.
I mean, is this helpful, or should I have the empty bracket out?
No, I think you're fine with what you have.
Okay,
it's
cool,
a good
cool.
point of reference.
Okay.
All right. Next up, second round of the Eastern Conference. And we started off with, for me, I have the Boston Bruins and the Columbus Blue Jackets. Rob, you have the same thing. Bri, what did you have?
Boston and Toronto.
Boston and Toronto. Okay, right. Then. So I have Boston winning this series against the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think the Blue Jackets do surprise them and fight them a little bit, and I think the Bruins will come out having that first series be a bit of a dogfight for them. But I think the Bruins do take it, and they take it in 6, and they move on to the third round.
Yeah, Boston, it's not even – Boston wins the series.
Against yeah.
Against
Rob,
whoever, it doesn't matter.
What's up?
Against whoever, it doesn't matter. They're the
so
team
you have
that
them
beat in the East.
And you had them beating Toronto again, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Toronto stays the property of Boston. Nothing changes. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Fuck Boston. That's for you, Nicole. That's for you, Nicole.
Yeah. It's all right, though. It's all right. Who knows what kind of matchup we'll have for Boston later.
Yeah.
All right, then.
But I mean, they have so much veteran leadership that even with this long break and then having the take the bye in the first round here, which almost seems like it's more of a detriment than it is, But I mean, the further you can get along, the better. So I mean, you'll take the bye, but they have to my ultimate point, they have enough players that can turn it on. You know what I mean? As long as they're get adequate training leading up to that series and have that time to do so. So I think whomever they face, Boston moves on.
All right, then. So with Boston moving on, we now go to the next matchup that we have. I have Tampa Bay and the New York Islanders, and you have Tampa Bay and Carolina, Rob. And Bri, what did you have?
Tampa Bay and Carolina.
All right, then. Tampa does move on here against the Islanders, and I see Tampa finishing this one up pretty quickly, actually. I see them taking it in 5. I think Tampa was getting very scary there towards the end. And, yeah, the break does kind of kill the momentum, but doesn't change the fact that this was a team that's scary. They were starting to find that offensive groove again, and Andrei Vasilevsky was doing well. That's not a fun team to go up against in any round, and I don't think the Islanders would be prepared for them. How do you guys feel about the Canes in this situation?
It doesn't really matter. Tampa Bay's they're another powerhouse team they're just too good. Canes are good too. I think they'll put up a fight, but ultimately it's not going to matter. Tampa Bay, they're going to come through and they're going to do what they have to do.
Nicole,
go ahead.
Nicole was just saying, yes, thank you, Pope. Fuck the Bruins. And she was very happy with the conference final that you had. What were you going to say, Rob?
I was just going to say that another point to Tampa Bay's prospectus to win here is how they fell out of last year's playoffs very embarrassingly. You
Yeah.
know that when these playoffs happen, that they've had that ambiguous day on the calendar circled at this point based on world events, and they're going to come out guns blazing, very fearful of them. I was really hoping that the Flyers wouldn't have to face them before the conference finals, but we'll get there when we get there. Yeah, I think whomever they face in the second round stands no chance. So much goal scoring, so many defensemen, and Andre Vasilevsky. Tough to beat that team.
Absolutely. All right, then. Our next matchup, it is the Fly Guys themselves, the Philadelphia Flyers, meeting up with an old hated rival of theirs, the Blue Shirts of Broadway, the New York Rangers, the oldest rival in Flyers history. And Bri, who did you have in this matchup?
Same matchup.
All right, then. So with that being said,
And what a great first matchup. Flyers Rangers. It's the way it's supposed to be.
yes, absolutely. Great way to start off a playoff run, just like old times.
Right.
And yes, Rob.
Helpful to the Flyers to face such a good rival for having this long break, too. Sweep!
Yeah! Joe is getting the brooms out, and he's sweeping it. However, though, I think the Flyers do take it, but they take it in 5. I think the Rangers do get a win, though, in this series. And I think it does come in the Garden. Even though the Flyers have played better on the road, I think they do lose a game on the road, though. And I think the Rangers do get at least a win back from the Flyers. However, though, it's not enough. The Flyers do move on to the second round as they eliminate the New York Rangers. But the Rangers, they'll fight them. They'll be a hard-fought 5 games. And I think that it'll be a sign of things to come. I think these two will meet up in the playoffs a lot more in the future. So there's that. And James saying, ideally, if Flyers manage to knock off Tampa, I'd rather see them versus Boston.
Yeah, I agree with James there. If I'm a Flyers fan, I'm looking to play Boston. They played Boston great all year. I believe they went 3-1-1 against them, or like 2-1-1 or something, somewhere along those lines. Played them really, really well. I don't think they've beaten Tampa Bay yet this season.
No, they have not.
Yeah, just that last game, the 2-0 was the lone Boston win, and Tampa has crushed the Flyers, and that went into, and I'll go more when we get to the third round there for that Flyers Tampa Bay matchup. But if just to address the commenter's point, if by chance the Flyers could flip the script and beat Tampa, they're beating Boston and they're playing for the Cup.
And I think that's ultimately what he's trying to say was, they have a better chance to get against the Bruins than they do against Tampa.
Correct.
For the reason of how well they've played them all season long.
Correct.
True. Nicole chiming in. Plus, Stammer will be back from surgery. Hedman and McTruck will be healed up. My boys will be out for blood after last year's upset. Oh, yes, they will. Ted FX saying, Caps, we went 3-0-1.
Yeah, Flyers went 3-1 against the Capitals.
That is true. That is true. Okay, then. So we have the Flyers moving on. Brian, you had the Flyers moving on, too?
Yep.
All right, then. Okay, next up, my matchup. Ooh, here's the fun one. The Caps and the Penguins. They cannot avoid each other. Got the same matchup, Rob? I think you do.
Yeah, you see it, man. And that's why I love the way this win percentage created great matchups. Classic rivals, and that'll be great for whenever you go to restart a sport, no matter what the reason. Now, this was out of the hands of the particular league, not like a strike or whatever, but you got to build up that fanfare, and it'll be a little easier because people will be hungry for sports. But when you can create such great matchups, that's another feather in the cap of this structure that we developed here for the show.
Absolutely. And Bri, you got same matchup, right?
Yep.
Cool. All right. So with Washington and Pittsburgh, this will be an intriguing test for Washington, who had to wait to get to face Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's already been in a series. They swept right through it. It's it's tough to call here because these two are always so very close to each other. I am going to break tradition in history, and I'm going to say Washington still gets a win here. I think they actually wind up beating Pittsburgh, but I think they beat them in 7. I think it's very close, and it gets very, very intense. But I still think Washington, they shocked the world once again. Lightning strikes twice rarely, but it did this time, and I see Washington moving on past Pittsburgh. Even though the Penguins will fight them with every fiber of their beings, I think they win it in 7.
Yeah, I can't see that being a series that's under 7 games. There's just two teams. You got Ovechkin versus Malkin, Ovechkin versus Crosby. It's always a fun bloodbath. These guys just always seem to manage to bring out the best in each other. And the question is, I think, it's going to come down to goaltending.
Yeah.
Who's going to have whose goaltender is going to give him better situations to win? And you have Matt Murray versus Braden Holtby. I mean,
Murray's
obviously statistically, you got Braden Holtby as the better goaltender, but Matt Murray gets hot. He can get hot. He's already got 2 Stanley Cups to his name versus the one that Braden Holtby has, which is ironic because that's actually what I'm watching right now. It's a Capitals game 7. I could see Pittsburgh upsetting Washington, but it's going to be a 7-game series, and I got Washington winning because they're going to have no pressure on them. They have no pressure on them now.
Okay, then. So you got Washington moving on and breaking tradition like I was. Rob, what do you have happening in this series?
Again, you see it on the screen. Certainly going here with Washington, the favorites here. I think you look back at the season series, and the Penguins took the first game 4-3, but since then the Capitals beat the Penguins 5-3 and 5-2. So certainly the edge. Being that there's a break, momentum kills. But if you want to base these scores on the matchup, the edge should favor the Capitals in this situation. And if you go to the plus-minus differential, very close. Pittsburgh a +28, Washington +25. But here's the difference. Washington is a road team of 23-10-3, opposed to Pittsburgh being nearly 500 with a 17-15-2. So with that little bit of an edge, I give Washington potentially a 7-game series win here. Another classic battle between Pittsburgh and Washington.
Yeah,
all right, then.
it'll be another good Pittsburgh Washington series like it usually is.
Yeah, and we have them moving on. First time that Washington will have back-to-back series wins in history of the NHL against the Pittsburgh Penguins. So that would be interesting story to tell right there. Okay, back to the West we go. Third round time. We're getting to the nitty-gritty here. Here we have the fight to see who will go to the conference finals. And my matchup here, Colorado and Winnipeg, just like Rob. Bri, who did you have?
I don't remember.
Booze getting to you? The booze getting to you? Yeah, baby.
I've only had one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just can't read my handwriting anymore.
I forgot. I'm the lush of the show. I forgot. This is the funnest time I have all week, college. Like I'm
Colorado,
so grateful
St. Louis,
for this.
I think.
Same thing here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have Colorado and St. Louis if I've read it right.
Okay, then so you got Colorado and St. Louis. That's a fun series. So I am going to be right back. You guys talk amongst yourselves. And what do you got for Colorado and Winnipeg and Colorado and St. Louis? I'll be right back.
Brian, do you have St. Louis beating Colorado?
No, I actually have Colorado going on to the Western Conference Finals. But I think that would be a really good series. It's the 2 top-notch teams in the NHL. 2 of the top 3 teams in the NHL. Obviously we didn't really get to talk much about Colorado being as good as they are, like ridiculously good.
Yeah.
just to see it where they've come in the last couple of years, and they pretty much just flipped like a light switch. Just from 2 years ago, where they started out so hot and just completely collapsed,
Right.
to trading Matt Duchene and essentially just pretty much turning it right back on, and in the following year, being a team that competed as a top 3 team in the league again. Now look at them; they're setting one of the top 3 teams in the NHL now. So it'll be a fun series for sure.
Oh, no matter what the matchup it is, it'll be a fun series. And I think the difference between that team and this, Brian, is defense. They've gotten light years better on defense, as much credit as we give to the goal scoring. But look at the youth. Look at Kale Mocker. Look at your boy, Graves.
Ryan Graves.
Ryan Graves. I mean, that tandem alone, let alone other contributors on that defense, makes Colorado a legitimate cup contender. And I think a team that could beat whomever they face in the third round, whether it be Winnipeg, St. Louis would obviously be a tougher task. And
yes.
Could I see St. Louis upsetting Colorado? Sure, definitely. But to my point earlier about St. Louis, I would have Colorado moving in that matchup as well.
Yeah, I mean, not even just on the defensive side. Look at the moves they've made, not only just in the offseason, but at the trade deadline as well. Picking up Vladimir Nemestikov, who seems to have refound his game a little bit since going to Colorado at the deadline. Then Najim Kadri, who seemed to be a little bit of a what's the word I want to use? A bit of, I guess you can call him a troublemaker in Toronto.
Yeah.
Seemed to get himself into some sticky situations. You haven't heard much of his name outside of his play on the ice.
Cancerous. That's a good word.
I don't want to use cancerous because that's more of a way to describe Evander Kane when he was in Buffalo.
Yeah, true.
Or him in general.
Well, I mean, he's been pretty good in San Jose. So
I was just talking about the person.
But he seemed to have settled down and found his game, and they seem to be doing a really good job of keeping him. I don't want to say in control, but keeping him out of trouble.
Right.
All right, then. For me, I had Colorado moving on past Winnipeg. And I had that series going in 6. And I had Colorado finishing it off in 6 games, moving on to the Western Conference Finals.
The one detriment to Colorado, if it works out, according to my simulation, they beat the Flames and they beat the Jets, which are not really the best tests if you're moving on for a cup final run. So they could get flat-footed because of that. I think that's the only argument against how I have it laid out.
I mean, absolutely could be. I mean, you have a tougher test against a team like Winnipeg, or in my case, St. Louis, than over, who did I have? Calgary and Edmonton.
Right.
But, it could be a detrimental situation where they do wind up getting flat-foot, but it also depends on series length. Are they getting worn out because they're playing 6-7 game series? Are they getting a rest because they're playing 4 or 5 game series? A lot of variables that could lead to Colorado being a little more flat-footed come the Western Conference Finals if they get that far.
Sure.
All right, then. For that, I will go to our next matchup here, and we have the Vegas Golden Knights on my bracket up against St. Louis, just like Rob's. Bri, what did you have?
Dallas and Vegas.
Dallas and Vegas.
That'd be a great matchup too, man.
Oh, I know.
Sin City versus Crumb City, right?
It's definitely Crumb City, I'll tell you that much.
Okay, so let's see here. In my matchup, St. Louis versus Vegas, and I would say that it would be St. Louis taking this series, but this series goes 7, and Vegas fights for every square inch of the ice. This series is a battle. It's really a testament to the fortitude of St. Louis at the end of the day, because Vegas is going to fight them, and they're going to fight them every single step of the way. But I think St. Louis comes out on top in the end of the day.
I mean, again, I'll say it. You know, I may have not had St. Louis going as far as some other people had, but uh, that's not to say they can't do it. They just proven themselves last season.
I would like to say that the Blues overachieved last year, especially with the way that the season started for them. But it's hard to say that at this point, being a top 5 team in the NHL in the standings. But I had Vegas and Dallas, and
Oof.
Vegas has really shown me a lot over the last 3 years. 3 playoff appearances, 1 Stanley Cup final appearance, a couple Western Conference Finals appearances. They show me that they're a team built to compete and a team that's built to win now. Now, unfortunately, I have Dallas moving on in a 7-game series. Like to Maddie's point, it's going to be a battle. I just think Dallas is a better team. I think the leadership of Jamie Benn and Joe Pavelski together, I think they just, it's going to be enough to push them past.
Yeah, I can see that. Now, I'll give you the season series real quick. The Blues beat the Golden Knights in that scenario in their first matchup 4-2 back in December 12th. But since then, the Golden Knights have taken the last 2 with scores of 5-4 and 6-5. For the Dallas Stars, they also took the first matchup back in November 4-2, and the Golden Knights took the second matchup, thriller in overtime, 3-2. Now, of course, their third matchup was postponed due to the league suspension. So, that's a coin flip, and that would be a great series to see. If we go back to the St. Louis series, they've really had their number in close matchups, 6-5, 5-4. So at both overtime games, I forgot to mention that before too. So, I mean, it's going to be a tight series. I mean, that's one of the marquee matchups that we're seeing here in the West. But I just have a lot of faith in Vegas team that they put together out there in the desert.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good team out in the desert. A little scrutinized at first when I first saw the roster. I wasn't a big fan of the roster, but goes to show, they put a good team together. They put a very good team together.
All right,
Maddie, who do you got? Who do you got moving on? You said you have Vegas or St. Louis?
St. Louis.
Really? Oh, okay. So I'm the golden goose here. Okay, not a first. Not a first.
So we got.
See what you did there.
So our Western Conference Finals, I have the Avs and the Blues facing off with each other. Last year's Cup champs against a rising youth power in the West. Bri, you have Dallas and the Avalanche.
Yep.
And Rob, you have Vegas and the Avalanche. We're sensing a theme here in the West, just a little bit.
Yeah.
And now time to go see.
It's the Wild West, so a lot of things could happen out there, but it's no surprise that some of the perennial favorites are here in this Final Four and eventually Final Two.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go to the East and let's take a look and see what our Eastern Conference Finals are going to look like here, folks. And I'm going to get started off here. My first matchup, Boston versus Washington, just like Rob's. Bri, what did you have?
Boston, Washington.
Boston, Washington. Okay. This would be a fun series to watch because both teams are very evenly matched, I feel. It, again, will come down to goaltending like the Pittsburgh series would. Is Holtby going to be able to stay up to par with Rask, and is Rask going to stay up to par with Holtby? At the end of the day, I don't question veteran scoring because both teams have it, and they have youth, too, on both teams. Maybe Boston has a little bit more than Washington does, but still, at the end of the day, they both have offense. They both have solid enough defense. They can get through each other. I see this series going 7. And you know what? I'm going to say the President's Trophy curse comes back to bite Boston in the ass here. And I'm going to go with Washington moving on to the Eastern Conference Final in 7 games.
Wow.
Yeah, Boston. Holtby isn't what he used to be. He's still a very solid goaltender, but he's not the guy he was when he first entered the league. Rask is getting better with age. That defense is really good, and it's young, and it's fast. The Boston Bruins offense is fast, fairly young, and has, quite the physical presence. And I think they've only gotten better since adding Andre Kasha and Nick Ritchie. And, I think they're going to not only just outplay Washington, I think they're going to out-hit them. I think they're just going to just completely outmatch them 100%. And Boston wins this one in 5.
Wow. Okay, I thought maybe a little bit longer of a series, but I'm with you, Brian. I like, we saw, and I know I've been using this term a lot in the show, but we've seen a lot of chinks in the armor of the Washington Capitals this season, and a lot of them with Brandon Holtby. He's had a lot of subpar games, and I think this is the point of the playoffs where he gets exposed. Not that he's not a great goaltender. You just can't have phenomenal seasons every year. And based on what we've seen, this is my synopsis. Now, could it be different because of the break? Yeah, that's a possibility. But even if it is, and even if it's a series where it's Ross versus Holtby and it's a lot of 2-1 games, I still give the credit to Boston because of the point you made, Brian. Young defense. That's something that Boston's been missing for the past couple of years, and they've gotten younger and they've maintained their level of dominance. So, yeah, I think in a very tight series, Boston wins this series.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at Charlie McAvoy, Torrey Krug. I mean, you could even still throw a Char out there, even though he's not young. He's still a presence out there on the ice. So,
right, but Charlie,
yeah, Charlie McAvoy, he's the key. He's the key to that defense moving forward for that team.
All right,
and he can make bullets bend. Oh, wait a minute, that's an actor, right?
All right, so moving on from that. Next matchup, Tampa Bay versus Philly. And I'm pretty sure we all three got that matchup. And, well, I'd love to say that we could finally, get to the Eastern Conference Finals, but no, we don't win this series. We don't. That's just, no. We can't beat Tampa. We haven't been able to beat them all year. We don't play as well against them as we should. We're not beating them. It's as simple as that. They're too good. We're getting there. We're not there yet. Tampa's going to prove that. It's just, it's what it is, man. You're developing.
Me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
All 3 games that Tampa Bay has beaten the Flyers, they've all been 1-goal games, yeah?
They have been, but at the end of the day, though, it's just the Flyers can't get it going. When Tampa usually jumps out to a lead and they struggle against them. For whatever reason, it's the one team they struggle against. They struggle against them more than they struggle against anybody else in the league. So it's the kryptonite we have right now. It's Tampa. We may be the kryptonite of the Rangers. They're the kryptonite of us.
Again. It was a 1-0 Lightning win, which was a very surprising low-scoring game. And then I think to Maddie's point, he's thinking of the February 15th game, the 5-3 game, where I believe the Lightning took like a commanding lead in that game, and the Flyers crept back to make that a little bit closer.
I'm glad you brought that up, Rob, because that was the game I was about to bring up was, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Tampa Bay go out to a very dominant lead, and the Flyers climb pretty much all the way back into the game to come within a goal.
It doesn't matter.
In the third period. They can play Tampa well. They play Tampa well. Believe it or not.
It doesn't matter if you don't get the win. It really doesn't. Like, yeah, great. You climbed all the way back from 5-0. You still fucking lost. So it's like, at the end of the day, I don't think we beat Tampa. I don't think we can.
I don't disagree.
Do you know what Brian just did? I'm sorry. Do you know what Maddie just did right there? He said, "Hey, Brian, what do you think about this series?" And then he went, "It doesn't matter what you think."
I rocked him. I rocked him. Okay,
totally
okay.
Him.
I did the rock. I did the rock to Brian. I didn't even realize I did it. It wasn't even on purpose.
And I'm calling you out, Maddie, as being disrespectful.
Listen, just say what you want. You sit there and say that they're not going to beat Tampa. That's fine. But to say they don't play the Lightning well, they've played the Lightning well all season long. The one game in February, yeah, they started off bad. They started off had a terrible first period. But the second and third period, the Flyers were right there. They were right there in the 1-0 game, too, in January. They were right there. They're not far off from beating Tampa Bay. I think they could actually take that series to 7. I think Tampa Bay wins it, but I think the Flyers take it to 7. So, I mean, that might just be me. I think the Flyers match up pretty well. And the Flyers were only getting better as the season was going forward.
They were.
Is
Tampa,
somebody making
unfortunately,
popcorn? What the
was
hell is that sound?
too. What happened?
It sounded like somebody was making popcorn or something.
I don't know.
James, it's an every week thing. It just doesn't faze me anymore, bro.
Let's see here. Okay, so let's see. I had
I'm
Tampa
feeling like
moving on.
Ralphie, being one of the best in the business, and I'm the one that gets ragged on. Had to pull a Ralphie there. Sorry.
So yeah, I had Tampa moving on. Bri, you have Tampa moving on. Rob has Tampa moving on. So Eastern Conference Finals for you guys are Boston and Tampa. Mine is Tampa and Washington. And that's what we got. So, okay. All right, then. So now we are down to the final 4 teams. Final 2 per conference. Time to go to the Western Conference Finals.
I'm back.
And let's see. Nicole says Tampa Bay is a third period team. They came back in the second, then demolished in the third period from a 4-0, losing the game to win it in 5-4. Tampa Bay can get some hot streaks when it's down to the wire.
And that's one I think the Flyers have been good at all year too. Is being a piss poor first period team, but still playing better in the second and playing even better in the third. One of the best third period teams in the league.
All right, then. We go to the Western Conference Finals. We have the Colorado Avalanche and the St. Louis Blues. All right, then. Well, that's for me. You have Colorado and Vegas, Rob. And, Bri, you had Colorado and Dallas. So this should be interesting. All right, so...
Well, I kind of already gave mine away. I gave mine away earlier in the show who I have repping the West.
True. You had Dallas beating the young kids and going to the Stanley Cup Final.
Yeah, I think
Rob,
great. That's a ballsy prediction, and I love it. Like no disrespect to my research, I do like that, Brian.
Yeah, I mean Dallas is a good team. They've really rebounded this year after really being a piss poor team last year. And I think adding Joe Pavelski, I think that was a huge addition. And then you have a little bit of depth, physicality / potential scoring in Corey Perry, who can be a little bit vocal, and he'll stand up for his teammates if he needs to in physical situations. And that it goes a long way. And the defense has been they've played better all year long. And Ben Bishop's been Ben Bishop. So, Dallas has been a solid team all season long. It's nothing against Colorado. Colorado's the top team in the league for a reason. They're just stupid good. But upsets happen.
True.
Yeah, they happen, and that's probably a better matchup than I have pegged here at 1-4 between Colorado and Vegas. But I don't even see that as so much of an upset as because Colorado is not like a perennial powerhouse currently. You know what I mean? They're maybe borderline on the overachieving. You know what I mean? So that would be a phenomenal Western Conference final.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think even Vegas and Colorado would be a good one, and even St. Louis and Colorado. I think any of the three would be a very entertaining Western Conference Finals.
And Joseph Orkowski saying Flyers won't beat Tampa Bay, but it'd be nice if the Flyers could get it to 6 games. Would be nice to have Game 6 home game in Sheboygan, Wisconsin.
That's where it could go down. That's an educated comment there, Joe. And I mean, wouldn't it be ironic that the Flyers have to try to beat up on an 88?
That would be funny.
Yeah.
That would be ironic. And
good
Joseph
luck with that, though.
Joe's predictions here: Oilers and Blues in the Western Conference Final, Bruins and Lightning in the Eastern Conference Final, Blues and Bruins in a rematch, and this time the Bruins win the Cup.
I don't hate his predictions. I just don't understand Edmonton. Like I get McDavid and Draisaitl kind of using them as an argument, but the defense isn't that great out there, and Mike Smith he's good, but I don't know. I just don't think they're going to play that well in front of him. I think their special teams is really what's going to be their downfall moving forward.
Yeah. Nicole saying, I think it would be an extremely interesting series if the Stars played the Bolts in the Stanley Cup Finals. Would be. Definitely would be.
She's not going to like my final.
So, for me, I will go. I have Colorado and St. Louis. I have the kids winning. I think St. Louis fights hard, and I think Colorado does the same. I think, like we were saying, upsets do happen. I can actually see Colorado going to the Stanley Cup final. I think they've just been phenomenal this year. I think that first taste of the playoffs last year, it was enough to whet their appetite, and I think that this is the year that they're saying, okay, we want more. We want a lot more. You know, we schooled Calgary in the first round. Yeah, we got our hopes and dreams smashed by San Jose last year, but it's not happening this year. We're not losing to another team. And I think they'll come out St. Louis. I think St. Louis will fight hard, but I see Colorado upsetting them and going to the Stanley Cup final.
You can see that.
And what we got? Rob's final, obviously, he's got Colorado moving on against Vegas.
Yeah, I have Colorado winning here. I think they go on a nice rush. Like maybe some of this prediction here, and I will phrase this as a prediction because when we get this far within hypotheticals, it has to get to gut. And my gut from shows past was always that it was going to be Tampa Bay and Colorado. So that's kind of a big reason why I went with Colorado. Moving on, but any team that has a plus 46 goal differential and they're 24-11 on the road, I mean, that's did you? Nice.
I think I did.
Nice.
No look back.
Nice. Yeah. So I definitely I go Colorado here in this series. Whether, I mean, if it was St. Louis, Colorado, I'd still have to maybe make the same prediction, but that would be a little bit more of a test for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this would be the biggest test that Colorado faces the entire time they're in the playoffs. It would be against St. Louis.
Right. Absolutely. Jumping over to the East in terms of their conference final, you guys gave your wrap up of the West, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, cool. I mean, with a normal playoff setup, the Flyers would have faced and probably lost. No, definitely lost to Tampa Bay in the Eastern Conference Finals, as I previously predicted. But as we see with this setup, that matchup took place in the third round instead. To the Flyers' credit, though, and I got to go a little homer here, boys. This is still a huge step forward for the Fly guys. And with a healthy Oscar Lindblom and Nolan Patrick, God willing, for the 2021 campaign, they'll be set up to make a deeper run and seriously be a cup contender when all is said and done.
I think you're there now, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Well,
we're not
like I
going to
said,
obviously find out yet, but
Right. But I mean, if they somehow did squeak past Tampa Bay, yeah, I definitely, like I said before, I think they have a legitimate shot at beating Boston and competing for the cup. But irregardless, right, based on my playoff format, how they beat the Rangers and lose to Tampa Bay, it's hard to take moral victories when you don't hoist the cup for, let's see here, 26, a 46th season. It's still a tough pill to swallow, but I think much like Tampa Bay, as you see on the screen, winning the cup after getting swept by the Columbus Blue Jackets last year, Flyers will take this experience into next, and I wouldn't be surprised if we have a legitimate parade on Broad Street in 2021.
wouldn't surprise me either.
It would be nice. Hopefully it does come to fruition. Hopefully. Meanwhile, in the Eastern Conference Finals, for me, I had Washington and Tampa Bay. Tampa wins this series and moves on to the Stanley Cup Final. And my Stanley Cup Final is Colorado versus Tampa as well. Bri, what is your Stanley Cup final?
We got Dallas and Boston.
Dallas and Boston. Okay, then. So, with that, we are here. Stanley Cup Finals. Me and Rob have the same one with Colorado and Tampa. And Bri has Dallas and Boston. Bri, who do you have hoisting up the cup?
The Boston Bruins. They're good. Like, there's no doubt about it. They're in tops in the league in most categories. And that includes overtime losses, unfortunately. As long as they stay out of overtime, there is no reason Boston doesn't win the cup. They have essentially the same team from 2011. Patrice Bergeron was there, Brad Marchand was there, Zdeno Chara was there, and then they got really good young pieces in Charlie McAvoy and Torrey Krug and Andre Kasha, and no need to go through all this again, but just Boston's just good. Tuukka Rask is playing better than he has in a long time.
All right, then. And as for me, I have Tampa Bay winning the cup. Reason for it, just following the trend. The trend of no one thinks you're going to do anything. Nicole saying, fuck you, Brian. And
He said you weren't going to like it. He wasn't lying.
He did give you a warning.
I did.
With me, I would say the reason why Tampa wins, just the trend. The trend of this, it's always been the team you least suspect that's going to do anything. Everybody expects Boston to either win the cup. Everybody expects another team to win the cup, like St. Louis repeating. I don't think it's going to happen. It's so rare to see a team, even when they make the Stanley Cup Finals the year before, it's rare to see the two same teams meet in the Stanley Cup Finals. Or just one of those teams to make it back to the Stanley Cup Finals. I don't see it happening. I just don't. I think Boston will get upset somewhere down the line, and it could very easily be Tampa. I just think that at the end of the day, someone's going to do it. I think Tampa could be that team. No one's expecting Tampa to win this year. No one's expecting Tampa to do anything this year. Guess what? That is exactly what happened with Washington. That is exactly what happened with St. Louis. No one expected them to do anything. Yes, St. Louis had a bad start to their year, and they managed to turn it all around, have that unbelievable run to go to the cup. No one expected that. Washington, they had a strong year, but most people figured they're going to fucking lose to Pittsburgh like they always do. They didn't. They went all the way, and they finally won their first Stanley Cup. I could see Tampa doing the exact same thing. I could see Tampa going on a run, proving that what happened last year was bullshit, and that they will win the Stanley Cup. I'm following that trend that happens all the time right now. It's just as much of a trend as a hot goalie winning you a Stanley Cup. And Vasilevsky, if he gets hot, he's tough to score on. So it's a possibility that Tampa could hoist up that cup if they follow that trend.
I mean, we'll see. Tampa will definitely be making some noise this year, though. I mean, as long as they're not holding the President's Trophy, they'll be fine.
Which they are not. So
they're all good there. I just think as good as their scoring prowess is, and as big and heavy hitters as they have on the defensive side, and this is a bruising team. This is different than past Lightning teams that we've seen in the past. It's Vasilevsky that's going to ultimately decide this playoff, this Stanley Cup Finals, and he's your Conn Smythe.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nicole saying Tampa started out as shit, and it would be an incredible comeback story, underdogs of the season in Tampa Bay, and it would be just like St. Louis. St. Louis, again, they did not start out strong. James said, I think if Boston can stay hot and get it going, they could be hoisting. They can hang with anyone, which is true. With the overtime thing is a problem. Have the broken remotes to prove it.
That's the one thing I even brought up was they lead the league in most categories. Overtime losses is one of them.
That is true. And
but
Joe,
they are still a very, very tough team to play, and they are still, to me, they're the team that's going to wind up hoisting the cup this year.
Joe saying Blues and Bruins win, so he believes that the Bruins will get the revenge match and beat the Blues. So that's what we got there. And that's what we have. So I have Tampa winning. Rob, you have Tampa winning. We both have them beating the same team and a young and up-and-coming Colorado Avalanche team that has a bright future, a very bright future ahead of it. Brian, you have the Boston Bruins, a powerhouse of the East, raising up the Stanley Cup. They would be the first team since Chicago to win both the President's Trophy and the Stanley Cup since then. And they will beat the Dallas Stars, who had not made it back to the Stanley Cup Finals since they lost in 2000 to the New Jersey Devils.
Wow,
So
it's been that long. Holy shit.
It's been that long since Dallas last got in. So it would be an amazing run for Dallas to get back to the Stanley Cup Finals. Too bad their fan base is fraudulent. But anyway.
I don't care. I'm not a fan.
Hey!
No, I mean either. But
Hey! You know
all right, guys. Well, this was fun doing this. Like I said, we'll put a thumbtack in the 1 through 31. We may do that somewhere down the line. We're not going to do that next week. We're going to give ourselves a break from the brackets for now because this was long. I am exhausted, and I'm sure the rest of everybody else is too. Oh, hey, look. Gritty's making an appearance. Hi, Gritty. Hi, Gritty.
Hoisted the cup, baby!
Actually, you do need to get a little toy cup so you can have him hoisting it up. You do need to do that. But, all right. So we thank you all for joining us. And we thank you for commenting in on your predictions of the Cup like we did as well. We love you guys. You guys keep us going. And we always will have plenty of time for your guys' comments like we did this week and like we do every week. Now, a little bit of programming alert. We will not be coming to you next week on Thursday. We'll be coming to you next week on Tuesday because there is a big draft thing going on Thursday night. So because of that, we will emanate on Tuesday night. For the time, we will definitely keep you guys informed on the time. We don't have it nailed down just yet. It depends on when Lazy Booking's going off, and then we can piggyback off of that and join you guys. And once again, give you guys another hockey show on Tuesday.
Also, on Thursday, they're doing a really cool roundtable for the NFL draft, for the first round of the NFL draft. Be sure to tune in for that. Not exactly sure what time that's going off yet. Probably somewhere around 7 or 8. So keep an eye out for that NFL Draft Roundtable. You're going to get all the football minds, including Mr. Ryan Brodo, as a part of that whole crew there. So that it'll be a fun time to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's been fun. It's been a pleasant ride. And thank you all for joining us. We were brought to you by Specialized Physical Therapy. Also, we were brought to you by Ambuck Services. Obviously, right now, while the pandemic's going on, you're shuttered in. You can't really do a whole lot. But once this thing blows over and it's time for us to get back to the regular everyday, you might want to fix up your deck. You might want to clean out your gutters. You might want to take care of some trees. That's what Ambuck Services is for. Those gentlemen will make your deck, your gutters, and the trees go away with any muck, any grime, any kind of extras, whatever. It doesn't matter. Your lawn, your deck, everything, it will look beautiful. And you can call them at 856-879-5530, Ambuck Services. They'll take care of you there. And Nicole saying, enjoy the rest of your evening, gentlemen. I look forward to Tuesday. Always stay healthy and stay safe. You do as well, Nicole. We will look forward to seeing you Tuesday night. And as for everybody out there besides Nicole and the fam, we wish you all a pleasant good evening. Stay safe, stay healthy, as everyone says. And you guys enjoy your week and enjoy your weekends. Till then, guys, I'm Matt Satsuni. Down at the bottom there is the Dark Wing, Brian Daly. And right on, damn it, over here is the Broken One, Rob Povia. And once again, we had Mr. Brodo, the sign guy himself, producing for the show. We thank you all for joining us. We will see you guys next Tuesday right here on A2DRadio.com. Be safe. Peace, everyone.